Hello, 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 everyone. Dr. David Snyder checking in. Welcome to Face Reading for Fun and Profit and all things in between. For the next 2 hours or so, give or take, I'm going to be your host as we journey through one of the most fascinating and useful skills that I have ever learned. And that is the art and science of face reading, both old and new. Just by a show of hands, or that's me in the chat, how many people is this your first time experiencing the madness and mayhem that is Dr. David Snyder? Go ahead and type in if your name, and if it's your first time, go ahead and type first time in the chat. Now Lisa says the second time. Welcome back, Lisa. Pamela, welcome. I know your dad real well. And we look forward to seeing more of you in the future as well. We have our amazing Mia hiding in the background. There's Melanie. Welcome, Melanie. And I'm curious, how many veterans do we have here from the Snyderverse, as I like to call it? Type your name, where you're checking in from, how long you've been following our material, and we'll go ahead and target today's material for you guys. See here, we got our brothers and sisters out in YouTube land. I got your chat right here. So when you see me staring off to the side, you'll know I'm looking at you, right? Then there's Edie. Edie's a veteran. I know she's been around for a long, long time. She's been consuming the goodness, so to speak. There's Leslie, first time. Welcome, Leslie. I'm from Pennsylvania myself. What part of Pennsylvania are you from, Leslie? Pittsburgh. All right. I grew up in and around the Allentown area, so I'm on the other side. All right. Well, since this is going to be an intimate group, face reading is kind of a niche market, so to speak. The other Dr. David from Boston. Welcome, David. Good to see you again, my brother from another mother. So I'm curious, I'm wondering, just so I understand you better, what do you know about face reading? What do you want to be able to do with face reading? And how did you hear about us? Type that in the chat form. Not the standard way to begin a webinar, but you know what? I'm not a standard guy, as you can tell by my apparel sometimes. All right, so what do you want to learn tonight? If you came away with nothing else as a byproduct of tonight's webinar, what would you actually want to be able to do or have or use that would have made it all worthwhile and inspire you to keep learning more? Go ahead and type it in the chat. So Edie says, found me on YouTube. Ilona wants to read faces. Well, that's kind of on the agenda. Misty says, hello, Dr. David. You are my favorite teacher. I love you. Well, I love you back, Misty. Thank you so much for that. Lisa says, received an email, curious in general, hoping to better understand some basics that I can apply. Okay. Do you guys have any, again, here's why I ask these weird questions, right? Before I go into a standard presentation, which I always have prepared, right? I never use it, but I always have a standard presentation. Melanie says, learn if I'm meeting a predator of human trafficking. Okay. On that note, you are going to flag those people more by their behaviors than you will their facial architecture. But there are some things that you can look for that we can talk about that will help you to kind of pay attention. Like they're not necessarily indicators that somebody's a certain way, but they're indicators of a certain tendency, right? And so while we're on that subject, first of all, let me begin with I think we're past the 1 minute mark. So let me start with my disclaimer. If politically incorrect language, colorful metaphors, swearing, or the word boobies offends you, this is probably not the best use of your next 2.5 to 3 hours, okay? I am a deep diver by nature. I absolutely love to go deep into a subject I'm fascinated by. Now, that being said, if you would take all the subjects I'm fascinated by, and if this is the scope of everything there is to learn, I'm very, very focused, right? Now, I have a pretty wide knowledge base, but honestly, I am such a pragmatist that if I cannot see an immediate deep level use for something, I don't stick. How many of you, by a show of hands, understand the difference between learning about something and being able to actually do something? You guys understand that distinction? Okay, my webinars and the people I want to talk to most are the doers of the world. There's a lot of, if all I cared about, honestly, was teaching people about things, I'd be making a lot more money than I am. Because people are always hungry for knowledge, but there's a level beyond just acquiring knowledge. Would you agree? And that's the realm of application. It's the area where we take that knowledge, which is potential power, and we actually apply it to something that gets us a tangible, measurable result in the world. How many people would identify themselves as action takers? Just by a show of that's me in the chat. Applied knowledge. Absolutely, Lizzie. That's what I'm about. So, and for me to stick with something as long as, like face reading, as long as I have, there has to be some huge, huge upside to knowing this. That being said, how many of you would like to be able to look at somebody and know if they're maybe potentially sexually or romantically compatible with you? Would that be a useful skill? Maybe. Would it be useful to know if you can look at somebody and know how easy they are going to be to get along with you? Would that be helpful? Would it be helpful to know how a certain type of person is likely to behave or respond in a certain situation? For example, if you're a manager or an entrepreneur and you're going to hire somebody to perform a job function in your business, would it be helpful to know in advance, without trial and error, have a pretty good indication of how that person is going to get along in your environment? Casey says she's deeply offended by boobies. Out of here, Casey. I love Casey. Casey's one of my regulars. So, right. How about what you guys want to know about lie detection? I'll teach you some things about lie detection with the face that will, again, make your life a lot easier. Trust me, there's a whole lot more. If this is the scope of everything there is just in the realm of face reading and understanding the architecture and the dynamics of facial cues, facial expressions, facial architecture, even in a 3-hour webinar, we got time for this. So I promise you this, I will take you as far down the face reading rabbit hole as I can. I will give you as much easy, actionable methodologies that you can assimilate as possible, which are all drawn from a much larger set of face reading trainings and systems and packages that we've put together for you. Which, is it okay if we present to you some packages and some programs at the end or partway through the webinar, that if you guys want to take your study and your learning further, is that fair? Is that okay? Can we do that? Right? Because honestly, once you get a taste of this, you're not going to want to stop. I sure as heck did. And I've been doing this almost 20 years now. And the more I learn, the less I know. I am absolutely fascinated by this. And it has made my life so much easier in everything, from the people I choose to associate with, the friends I make, the relationships I've been in. I've literally told people, my advanced students who are going through some really tough external stuff. I can't talk about it for privacy reasons, but I said, this person is going to do this, 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 and this. You need to do this right now. And I was right every single time. Why? Because I've spent my life dedicated to the art and science of human influence and understanding human behavior. Now, that whole story, I'm going to give you my origin story. I did not come out of the womb all accomplished and suave and debonair, as one of my more cultured colleagues used to say. It's a play on suave and debonair, by the way. Growing up, I had a rough time growing up. Now, I'm not saying I had the worst childhood ever, but I spent a lot of years always looking over my shoulder. I spent a lot of years terrified to walk down the street because of the constant bullying and hazing and just abuse that I was getting. My father and my mother they did the best they could. Again, it's kind of personal to say this, but my dad was the son of an abuser, if you can understand how that works. And he did his absolute very best with what he had, but that stuff travels, and I was the son of an abused son. And so I had that in my genetic memory. I had, his particular mannerisms and things like that, where we have a much better relationship now than we've ever had. A lot of it is because of this. but I did not have a good childhood, in terms of my ability to mesh with people, to feel like I fit in, to understand that I was being scapegoated and lied to a lot of times. And so I became very, very, very paranoid. In fact, one of the things we're going to talk about when we get into our face reading training today is something called auditory intuition, which can be seen on little almost gill-like marks in front of the ears. And auditory intuition comes from a self-defense mechanism. People who have these markings usually grew up in or around an environment where they had to constantly pay attention to what was being said, to how it was being said. And over time, because they're in this form of auditory hypervigilance, they begin to get very, very good at reading subtext and understanding the intentions behind the way a person words things and subtle variations in tonality. So they have very, very good ability to parse and understand what's not being said in words, but is being said through implication or inference, or as what's the word I'm looking for? In NLP, there's a word for the language pattern, conversational postulate, which is a big long word, which goes to say, if I were to say, hey, is the door open? And you get up and close the door, right? The actual answer to that question would have been, yes, the door is open, but you interpret it as a command or an instruction or a request to go close the door. And so you do. That's a conversational postulate. It's an inference that you make, not based on the words, but on the way I've said those words and the implications in my tonality. So people who have these markings, which we'll talk about, it's on part of your emotional map. People who have these markings are very, very, very good at listening to people and pulling out and extracting information that isn't being overtly said. That makes them very good at lie detection, makes them very good therapists, makes them very good teachers, mediators, negotiators, lawyers, for that matter. But this marking, even though it becomes a blessing in many cases later on in life, often starts out as a self-defense mechanism. It's a way to stay safe in dangerous environments. And so my life growing up, I spent more time feeling like I was moving through enemy territory. And it was because of those early experiences that I became absolutely committed to self-empowerment and understanding of human beings. I remember the day when I stood in my room, tears streaming down my face, and I made two commitments, really. The first one was that I was never going to be powerless again. I was never going to find myself in a situation or circumstance where there was nothing I could do or no way to affect that outcome. And I've stayed true to that. The other one was a little bit more born of pre-adolescent desire to fit in. I was going to be as irresistible as humanly possible. I was going to become the most charismatic, persuasive human being on the planet. That's where I started, right? And if you told me 30, 40 years later, I'd be in a clinic 8-10 hours a day, healing other people through these skills, I'd have laughed at you. It just simply was not on my radar. So that being said, now that I've talked about my origin story, who the hell am I, and what qualifies me to do these things? Well, first of all, I am an actual doctor of Chinese acupuncture and Oriental medicine. I've had an active clinic here in Solana Beach, California, where I've treated physiological illness that is due to largely repressed emotion since 2005. And we've covered everything from cancer tumors to multiple sclerosis to lupus to muscular dystrophy to COPD, herpes outbreaks. We very rarely get weight loss cases or smoke cessation cases because most of what we get is by medical referral. So people are going to the doctor, things aren't gelling the way they're supposed to gel or resolve, and they get referred to me. And so they wind up in my chair and they get out largely free of the symptomology, because most of what is really bothering people can be traced back to some form of chronic repressed memory and emotion, right? So I've had the opportunity in many cases to observe and understand people in ways that a lot of people never get the chance to to really do, and to make powerful transformations for them, and to help them to transform themselves. And that's what we're going to do here today. We're going to give you a tool over the next 2 hours, 2.5 hours, that is going to allow you to see people through a very different lens, to literally, in many cases, look at them and pull back the masks that they wear out in public, to be able to look at people and know with a very, very high degree of certainty what kind of emotions they're expressing, what kind of emotions they're not expressing, what their temperament is, how they're most likely to respond in very specific situations or circumstances, whether they're physically or emotionally or sexually or romantically compatible with you, whether they're incompatible with certain work environments or certain types of relational interactions, right? There are certain facial characteristics that will tell you who responds well to authority and who doesn't, who works well in a group and who doesn't. And that's just one dimension of what's possible when you start studying facial architecture and facial anatomy. Okay, there's another side to it, and that's the one that most people are familiar with. And that is the realm of micro-expressions. If you've ever heard of Dr. Paul Ekman, or my good friend Chase Hughes, or you've ever watched the show Lie to Me, most of that content is about what we call dynamic facial profiling. And what that means is, when I'm talking to you and my brain is working and my body's working, and I try to suppress or express an emotion that I don't feel, or repress emotion that I don't want to feel, there will be a subtle transformation in the way that my face and my voice align. And so one of the things we'll talk about as part of this training, we can't go too deep into it, but it is part of what we call dynamic profiling, which you need to understand. So we're going to talk about 2 different types of profiling using the face today. We're going to talk about passive profiling. When I say passive, I don't mean that you do nothing. What I'm saying is that with passive profiling, we're going to look at things that don't change quickly over time unless we do something radical, right? So for example, when you start to develop wrinkles, all wrinkles are overuse injuries. They arrive out of the face because of certain muscles we're overusing. Certain muscle patterns will equate to repressed sadness. Certain wrinkle patterns, which are related to muscle use, were related to disappointment or over nurturing or mania or skepticism, right? The different ways that we use our emotions have a consequence on the face. And the more of those emotions that we're experiencing, the more those lines become worked in. So if you can think of it this way, passive profiling, right? The wrinkles that are on your face when you're just not doing anything are the consequence of a lifetime of micro expressions, of fast little emotional changes or transformations or repressions that we've tried to hide or have not given ourselves permission to express. And I can tell you something with absolute 100% certainty. And I know you're not allowed to say certain things a certain way because it's just like making claims and stuff. I don't really care. Look, I'm going to be very, very upfront with you. I don't talk about things that we can't do on a regular basis, right? So I'm going to give you the standard FTC disclaimer. My results are not typical, right? If you do the things the way that we teach you to do them, you will win most of the time. But you have to actually do them, right? So I'm going to get off my pedestal there. So active profiling, these are micro expressions when somebody actually is actively lying to you, right? Not necessarily a micro expression, but you will see changes in the facial architecture. We'll talk about those things. I like to teach people about the passive profiling stuff first, because it's a lot more forgiving. It's easier to see, right? It doesn't just go away in the fraction of a second. And so it makes it more useful for you to develop a long-term profile of whoever it is that you want to create the profile for. And I'm going to use that word profiling a lot because that's what it's about. All face reading is based on this idea of pattern recognition. And the systems that we're going to be pulling from throughout the course of this webinar and in our programs and things of that nature that we're going to share with you have over 2,500 years of observational scientific research behind them. 2,500 years ago, my teacher saw a book, one of the very first books on Chinese medicine. The second page of the book was all about facial diagnosis and the map of one of the very first maps of the face that we're going to be talking about today. So what we're going to do, the agenda for today, is we're going to look at decision-making practices. In other words, if you could look at somebody and know exactly what kind of information to give them, the order and sequence to give it to them, that they would automatically feel very natural about going ahead and making the decision in your favor, would that be useful? If you could look at somebody and know how they make decisions, would that be a useful skill to have in life and business? Okay, we're going to do that. How many of you would like to be able to look at somebody and just get an instant snapshot of their emotional constitution? In other words, how much sadness they're carrying around, how much joy they've experienced, how much disappointment, depression, if they're manic or not, right? Or potentially bipolar. Would that be useful? Okay. Would you like to be able to look at somebody and know if you need to be careful about your boundaries around these people? Okay. That's all on the to-do list for tonight. We're going to probably cover that some of it we'll cover at the first part of the webinar. Then we'll talk about the packages we put together so you can take your training further. And then we'll circle back and we'll get even more granular on the different aspects of the face. Okay. So I've been studying this a long time. My teacher was a woman named Lillian Bridges. At the time when I was training with her, she was the world's leading authority on Chinese face reading. And as I studied with other people after Lillian passed away in 2021, as I studied with other people, I really, really began to appreciate just what Lillian had given us from her journey. Her family were a family of face readers. It was a family system. And when she passed, there was not a lot of interest from what I could gather in the rest of her grandchildren or her sons and daughters wanting to really carry that on. I think they kept her website going, but beyond a certain level of interaction, there's that the face reading is really it's been left to the people who graduated from her programs. So this is my way of perpetuating and moving that information forward, of bringing more people into the face reading family and of adding more things to this amazing discipline. So let's talk about decision making. How many of you would like to be able to look at somebody and know very, very clearly how they make decisions? All right, we'll start with that very first one. When we start looking at the face, we want to understand that as a face reader, especially someone who's got the credentialing and the training that I've got, when I look at the face, I see the face in different types of levels and different types of patterns. So let me give you a basic example of this. Let me see if I can find this. So when an acupuncturist or an Oriental medical practitioner looks at your face, they kind of see it this way. So this is a 5-element representation. Now, we're not going to spend a lot of time on the Chinese 5-element systems because it presupposes an understanding of that philosophy. But when I look at your face, I'm looking at it in terms of how different zones relate to different other zones. But if you look here, you'll see the kidney is one color, the liver is another, pericardium is another. So if you look at the color scheme, we can actually look at your face, and by being able to see the subtle colorations from one part of the face to the next, we can tell how your liver, your kidney, your pericardium, your stomach, your spleen, what the health level of all of those different organs are. Now, if this is a class on behavior and influence, why are we talking about this? Well, aside from the organic physiological side of Chinese medical diagnosis, each of these organ systems has a certain field or emotions related to these particular organ systems. So, for example, if I were to talk about the kidneys, right? Let me see if I can get a pointer here. Come on. Okay. So if I were to talk about the kidney, for example, the emotions of fear is related to the kidney. Now, you have zones on the face that are related specifically to the kidneys. So if somebody has fear issues or anything related to risk tolerance or fear, guess where I'm going to look? 1, 2, 3, 4. So I can look at these areas, and by looking at what the energy of their organ system is like, I can gauge how much fear they have on a pretty good basis, right? If I see a lot of markings in this area that indicate fear, that can also clue me in that there might be something organically, energetically wrong with the water element in the body, or the kidneys and the urinary bladder, to be specific. Now, this is not where we're going, but I want you to understand it's all connected. I can reliably diagnose and treat your face using Oriental medicine through the map I'm showing you right here. Okay? But there's also emotions that are as reliably connected to these energies. And that's what we're going to be talking about, those aspects of it today. So before I move any further, here's another map, and this is just hold on a second. Let me just erase this. Okay, it's not letting me erase. That's just weird. All right. Anyway, so if we were to look, so you can see now all the different organ systems where they land on the face. Right. And again, I just wanted to share that with you for a moment because I don't know why that's not erasing. Oh, I know why. It's not easy jumping back and forth between all these newfangled PowerPoint things, right? Right. So these can be found in my teacher's book, Face Reading in Chinese Medicine by Lillian Pearl Bridges. And I highly recommend that. That book is required, by the way, for all of my students. So, all right. So the first thing we're going to look at when we're looking at people's faces, remember we said, oops, let me close this out a little bit. I mentioned earlier, I said, what if we could look at somebody? What if we could look at somebody and literally peel the mask away from their face and see who they truly are? So when we look at the face, the first thing we want to know is, who is this person? Who is the person that this person is trying to show me? What is the mask they are showing me? A person's public mask, the persona that they want you to perceive them as being, can be seen on the right side of the face. Okay. Many times, especially if the person is very, very left-brained, you may not see markings as deeply on the right side of the face. If a person is very emotional, you'll see a lot more markings on their left side than on their right side. This because this side of the brain is controlled by this hemisphere, or this side of the body is controlled by this hemisphere of the brain. This side of the brain controls this side of the body. So one side of you is deeply emotional, the other side is deeply logical. So you'll tend to feel and express more if you have a stronger right hemispheric dominance. Okay. But when we look at somebody, the first thing we want to know is, are they balanced? What does balance mean? Hold on a second. Balance means symmetry. When I look at somebody's face, I want to be able to tell, are the lines on one side of the face approximately the same as the lines on the other side of the face? When I look at their eyes, now they looks like a raccoon. Are the eyes symmetrical? Is one eye bigger? Does one eye protrude out more? Is one eye a little deeper than the other eye? When you start really paying attention to the subtleties of a person's facial geometry and facial architecture, you will see that faces are far from symmetrical and that there are certain features that are more prominent on one side than on the other. If the features are more prominent on the right side of the face, then this person expresses those things more when they're out in the public eye or out in the world. If the lines you're seeing are deeper on the other side of the face, this is who the person is when nobody's looking. This is who the person is when the lights are out, the doors are closed, and they're either by themselves or they're with one or two super close significant others that they really trust. So the right side of a person's face is their public face. The left side of a person's face is their private face, right? Now, why do we even care? Why is this even important? Because, and this was not something that came directly from Lillian's lineage. It actually came from her son. It came the opposite way. And here's how it works. Out in a business world, right? Anybody ever notice that when you go to work, you're a different person than you are when you get home? When you get home and you throw off the work clothes and everything, you're no longer Dr. David or Nurse Fran or whatever title you have in the world. You get home and you're around the people that are your closest people. Your identity shifts, doesn't it? You become mom or you become dad or whoever that is, right? It's important to understand that when we're out in the world and we're dealing with the public, that right side of our face tells us who that person wants to be seen as. It tells them what kind of identity they're currently embodying, what kind of identity they're currently embracing. And if we want to get the biggest bang for our buck, that's the face we have to romance, metaphorically speaking. Okay. Can you, in a business context or a professional context, look at the left side of a person's face and figure out who they are when nobody's looking? And can you do something with that? Yes. The problem with it is strategically is a lot of times it makes people feel very, very vulnerable, and that puts them on the defensive. So you're going to find in our influence classes, we have this advanced conversational algorithm that we follow that creates two different identities in people. It's called PANDA, positive association, negative dissociation algorithm. And it's a way of talking that person literally splits into two identities. One they want to move towards and be seen as, and one they want to move away from and not be seen as. And that will create a propulsion system in them that makes them behave in a very predictable way. When we look at a person's face and we can distinguish the right side of a person's face from the left side and know that this person is way less emotional in public than they are behind closed doors, we can use that, right? And we can give them something to move towards. Okay, so in a business context, really pay attention to the markings on the public face and play to that identity, play to that mask, right? When you get into a more intimate setting or a place of comfort with that person, where it's not just a professional interaction, now you can start to tap into the markings you see on the left side of the face. But the first thing we want to check for whenever we are going to begin to profile somebody, is we want to look at the basic, what sticks out in terms of foreheads, cheeks, chin, ears, nose, right? But then we want to look at a little bit more granularly. We want to look at right side versus left side. How symmetrical are they? Right? In some of our advanced master level trainings, we're going into the spirit and the psycho-emotional sides of things. We'll show you what mental illness can look like from a facial perspective. It's called Shen disturbance in Chinese medicine, right? There's certain things about the eyes that are very, very easy to see if you've been through the training that requires. Okay, so the first basic map we're going to talk we're dealing with is public versus private. Are we good with this? If you're with me so far, if this makes sense to you, if you feel it's something you can use, type a number 1 or yes, I can use that in the chat. Okay. Now, if you want to see just how powerful two sides become one, if you go to your iPhone or your Android, there's lots of apps that you can download that'll take a picture of you and take the right side of your face and superimpose 2 right sides together. And it'll take the left side of your face and it'll superimpose 2 left sides together. And you can see when you do that, you have very, very, very different facial architecture. And those are 2 personalities that are inside of you, for lack of a better word. And you oscillate depending on context and the physiological and emotional state you're in, which one of those is going to be more dominant. Okay. Now, in our Identity by Design program, we'll actually teach you how to change those things. We'll have to teach you how to go in and depolarize and neutralize the aspects of your identity that you don't like, and how to energize and exaggerate and amplify the aspects of your personality that you do like. Right? It's all done through hypnotherapy, energetics, and NLP and holographic memory resolution, but it's all integrated into one. So you'll find that actually when you start doing these kinds of transformations, your face will actually change. First time Lillian told me that, you could hear my bullshit from across the room. And then she looked at me and she started reading my face and she was just hitting one thing after another. And then I went to her first face reading training. And one of the things that Lillian did at the end of a 5-day training is she would bring people in off the street and you would have to do a face reading for them. That was part of your graduation from the class. And what she would do is she would bring in people we didn't know. She would take a before picture. So she would take their picture before the reading. She would take a picture against the same wall, same lighting, after picture. The only difference is you couldn't get the person after the reading to stop smiling. If you'd done the work right, they were just happy as a clam, right? And she would, after the people left, she would put them up on the screen. And they were different faces. Noses would get longer, cheeks would get forward, brow bones would come out of nowhere. It was insane, right? Because the truth is, you're not physical. You're made out of light, frozen light. And as the level of energetic and vibrational density in your system increases or decreases, light refracts differently through you. And so you look different because your density is different. I'm not going to get into any more of that. If you want to know more about that, we have all kinds of videos and classes and stuff like that. But public versus private, that's your first map. The next one is going to be decision maps. Now, when we're looking at public versus private, we're looking at the right side of the face versus the left side of the face. We're looking for symmetrical features versus asymmetrical features. Those are very important. When we're looking at decision-making heuristics or algorithms, we're going to divide the face again, but now instead of dividing it into right side and left side, we're going to divide it into 3 basic zones: upper, middle, and lower. So I'm going to give you a map for this. Hold on a second. I need to make this picture bigger. Okay. So what you're seeing here now is the decision map of the face. And what I mean by that is when we start looking at the map of the face in terms of how people make decisions, the upper zone of the face, or of the head rather, is known as the heaven zone. People whose upper zone is larger than the rest of their face, they're considered to be much more data-driven. So these are people who like numbers, who like data and abstract information, who like to think a lot. My good friend Brandon, who's been my partner in crime, in NLP Power since at least 2016. If you look at his face, at his head shape, he's got a very diamond shaped head. Like his forehead is like out to here, right? And his chin is very pointy, and his cheekbones kind of are somewhere in the middle, but they're still pretty big. And what's interesting is whenever I ask Brandon a question, he answers me in either some kind of a calculus equation or a spreadsheet or just very global abstract. Oh, it's good, right? And so what happens a lot of times when you have somebody who has this big upper zone, you have to present them with the facts and the data before they're willing to listen to anything else, right? Now, we look at the middle zone, which is it extends from the eyebrow to just below the nose, right here. If this zone is larger, these people are very pragmatic. They don't want to know the data yet. They don't want to tell you how they feel about it because they don't know how they feel about it yet until you tell them what it's going to do for them, right? If you tell them what it's going to do for them, how it's going to help them, how it's going to make their life easier, how it's going to eliminate a problem, how it's going to make them the most popular person on the planet, if it has a pragmatic or practical application, you're going to get their attention. Okay. These people are usually quite grounded. They're usually focused on the here and now, and they just want to get things done. Okay. They just want to know, how is this going to make my life better? Okay. The third zone is what we call the emotional or instinctive zone. This zone extends from the base of the nose to the end of the chin. Now, people who have a strong lower zone, these people go with their gut. They trust their instinct. They're usually very, very emotional. They're also usually very, very physical. So let me elaborate on this a little bit. How many of you have ever heard of a discipline called graphoanalysis or graphology? Anybody ever study those things or train with those things? Okay, good. All right. So what's interesting is that in graphoanalysis, which was a system that I learned from Burt Baggett many, many years ago, when you look at somebody's handwriting, you can divide their handwriting into three zones: an upper zone, a middle zone, and a lower zone. The upper zone in a person's handwriting is equated to their thinking. In the graphoanalysis system, it's called the metaphysical zone. And it's not metaphysical in terms of woo or spirit, although it can be that. It's metaphysical in the terms of its abstract thought, cognition, imagination, data acquisition, information gathering. They're very much people who have their letters when they draw big upper zones. They're very much heady people. They're data people, right? The middle zone is what we call your mundane zone. It's a zone where people are very present. They're not thinking high thoughts. They're not in their guts. They're just dealing with stuff on a day-to-day basis. They're more just like here and now, right? And then of course you have the lower zone letters. And the lower zone in graphoanalysis is all about emotion. It's all about instinct. It's all about relationships. It's all about physical energy and physical expression. So if you look at that idea from graphoanalysis, you can map those three zones that we see in handwriting to the zones of the face. Now, what's interesting and fascinating about that is that both of these systems rely on muscular changes and fluctuations that with our handwriting and what we do with our face. So lower zone, instinct, emotion, gut, right? They either love it or they don't. Middle zone, pragmatic, here and now, very present. How's this going to change my life? Upper zone, data, information, prove to me this is real. Show me your information. Now, that by itself is useful because if I look at somebody and I see a zone like this, right, where my head is just the top of my head just dominates everything, right? My first instinct is to say, oh, data-driven person. I'll just hit them with the facts and the information. And that can work. But what we need to understand, and this is again where NLP can help us, right? In NLP, there was a concept that came out called towards and away from. It was called a propulsion system. And a lot of people in neuro-linguistic programming said, okay, well, I'm a towards person or I'm an away from person. And what they meant was that they moved towards pleasure. They moved towards the things that they liked. Other people would say, I'm an away from person. I move away from the things I don't like, right? But the truth is we're both. You are a towards and an away. The question is, which one do you do first and which one are you conscious of? So a person can be a towards the thing they want and away from the thing they don't want, or they can be away from the thing they don't want and towards the thing they do want. Okay, David, that's great. That's NLP, but how does that help us with the face? Your decision-making formula is the same way. You are not a data-driven person. You are not a mundane person or a practical person. You are not a emotional person. You're all three of them. The question is, which one do you do first? Which one do you do second? Which one do you do third, right? So if this is zone 1, this is zone 2, this is zone 3. If I'm a 1, 2, 3 person, that means I'm going to look at the data, I'm going to think about how it's going to help me, and I'm going to get a good feeling about it. But what if I'm a 3, 2, 1 person? Well, I'm going to go with my gut on this. I'm going to ask you what it's going to do for me, and then I want you to show me the data to support it. What if I'm a 2, 3, 1 person? How is this going to help me? How do I feel about what that's going to do? Prove to me that you can do it. So it's not just the single zone that gives us the better strategy. It's looking at the 3 zones in proportion to each other that allow us to find the full decision presentation formula for an individual. Does that make sense? Type in the chat. Give me your feedback. Okay. Is this useful? Yes or yes? Okay. So the first thing you're going to want to do when you get out into the real world, so to speak, is you're going to need to find some people who are willing to be your guinea pigs. Okay. So what I recommend you do, see if I don't have a straight edge. I need something relatively, oh, this will work. All right. So if you have something that has a pretty consistent width to it, right? I'm going to see here so I'm going to measure from hairline, right? So I know that my hairline is roughly that width. Then I'm going to measure each zone. There we go. Measure each zone, right? And I'm going to look at the proportions. And from those proportions, I'm going to determine, are they a 1, 2, 3, a 3, 2, 1, a 2? What is their algorithm? What is their unique facial proportions? And then I'm going to ask them, I'm going to give them something. I'm going to talk to them and say, well, you're someone who really wants the information first. And then you decide then you want to know how it's going to help you. And then you get a feeling about whether you want to do it or not, true or not true. Or you might say something, you get feelings about things, right? And then you look for the information and then you figure out if you can actually use it or not. And all you're going to do is watch their facial expressions, watch their pupil dilation when you do that. Because what's going to happen is when you match their decision-making strategy and they feel it hit, you're going to see the eyes open up. You're going to see their shen, or the light behind their eyes, get a little bit brighter. They may smile. They may give you an unconscious head nod. You'll see the pupils begin to open just a little bit. This signals that they're actually in alignment with what you just described, right? Because if a person searches hard enough, they can find times in their life where they did things in a different order. What we're looking for is, what do they do most often? What's the generalization? Because if you try to treat everything like an exception to the rule, you'll be reinventing the wheel your entire life, and you'll never have time to really internalize the patterns that make things easier. So when we start playing with this, make sure that you're measuring. Now, the way I was taught to measure the zones, top of the head to the base of the eye, to the top of the eyebrow, is zone 1. Base of the eyebrow, or top of the eyebrow to the base of the nose, is zone 2. Base of the nose to the tip of the chin is zone 3. And it's the relative proportions of those that are going to give you their decision-making formula. So Jax is asking, can those zones change in size as a person changes? The answer is yes. The answer is absolute 100% yes. The one thing I've learned from doing this for 20 some years, from seeing clients for almost 30 years now, is that people change all the time. They just don't always change in the way you want them to, or to the degree that you want them to. But when you start working and interacting with the psycho-emotional side of facial profiling or facial diagnosis or face reading, you will see facial traits change. You will see wrinkles evaporate, right? You'll see purpose lines appear where there were none before. It's bizarre. It really is. I remember the very first time I became aware of facial changes while I was doing therapy. I'd seen it when I was doing face readings, but I hadn't really paid attention to it when I was doing my hypnosis. And what happened was I was doing a Zoom session with this lady, and she had been just put down her whole life. Every time she wanted to express herself, every time she wanted to give an opinion, every time she wanted to do something that was for her unique perspective and viewpoint, her family would just squelch her dreams or crush her, give her constructive criticism that would just suck the spirit and the life out of her. So she went through the first 2 or 3 decades of her life feeling just like she couldn't be who she wanted to be, like she couldn't express herself. And so so she came in, we started working through those traumas, we started clearing those things, getting her power back. And then we went through this one intervention that we did that just flipped the script on her. And one moment, she's this attractive 30-something lady with nice, well-formed eyebrows, right? But nothing like prominent. The next minute, she's got this bone, and this like Frankenbrow just pops out of her like out of nowhere. Like one minute I look down, she's one way, the next I look up, she's a different way. And I'm like, whoa. It was like the turkey, the little thing on the turkey that pops out when the turkey's done. It was crazy, right? I've seen other changes, but that was probably the most profound one I'd seen just from a hypnotic intervention. And honestly, there's probably a lot more that I missed, just because at the time that I was working with clients, I was more focused on the internal transformations than I was the external ones. But that one of the things and how many face readers do we have in the group? I know I've got a bunch of people that I've trained over the years, and they've all reported the same thing. Like faces just change right in front of them, right? It's really, really crazy. And to hear me say something like that, they're going to come get me with a net, or they're going to accuse me of making claims. But Seth will tell you, Seth has done face readings where people's faces have changed, and we do some pretty crazy things here in Planet David. And it's not just me; it's the people who spend time with us and learn our technologies and our systems. You're a wizard now, Ari. Seth says they change in minutes. Yeah, they can, right? I saw a picture one time of Lillian's assistant Kelly, like 20 years earlier when she first started working with Lillian, and I got to know Kelly about the same time I got to know Lillian, and so I had seen her like 20 years after that picture was taken, and all the wrinkles on her face were gone, and it was from doing all the internal work. And that's what's beautiful about face reading. Is the first person you should be learning, whose face you should be learning to read, is yours. Because every morning when you look in the mirror, you get a perfect snapshot of what's going on inside of you and what you need to fix or what you need to work on, right? It's literally as plain as the face in the mirror, right? So face reading is such a powerful, powerful tool. But again, we want to use this in different ways. So the first person you should be looking at is, how do I make decisions? How do I make decisions? Now, how many people here have ever heard of the gut brain? Go ahead and type it in the chat. This is, again, part of the Q&A portion, right? Okay, so your gut actually is a little brain, right? It's called the enteric nervous system, right? And so your brain actually makes almost as more transmitters than your brain does, right? So you have this brain in your gut. You also have a brain in your heart, right? Your heart, your cardiac nervous system, sends more information to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. And of course, you have the brain that thinks and feels and emotes and stuff like that. So you have one brain, two brain, three brain. Well, one zone, two zone, three zone, right? Brainstem and reptile brain, limbic system, neocortex. So for those of you who are into weird fractal information, this three-level form of cognition is actually a pretty pervasive pattern in our neurology and our physiology. So for those of you who want to learn more about how all that intersects, there's a book called M-Braining by Steve Oka and Grant Susalu that will explain this three-brain concept. And I think it correlates directly to upper dantian, middle dantian, and lower dantian in the Taoist and Chinese energy systems. That correlates to the gut brain, the heart brain, and the cerebral brain, right? And it also correlates to the brain stem of the reptile brain, the limbic system, and the neocortex, and they're all expressed through facial architecture. That's my theory. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. All right. That being said, how many of you would like to be able to look at somebody and be able to just read the to get a snapshot of their emotional health and well-being? Would that be something that people would like to know how to do? Okay. So here's what's happening. We're about an hour into the content portion of our presentation. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with the emotional map, right? And we'll go through 5 or 6 traits. And then if it's okay with you, I'd like to show you how to get access to the complete system, plus a few extra really cool things we've got planned for you before the end of the year, for those of you who'd like to take your training further. Would that be okay? It's okay. And then after we talk about the programs, we'll come back and we'll finish the map of the face, and then we'll drill down on, we'll show you some active profiling techniques for what might trigger or what might indicate deception, what kind of boundary issues you should be looking for in people, whether they're more predatory or more likely to be preyed upon because of their facial architecture. Is there anything else that you'd like me to cover in part 3 of the webinar that I didn't already talk about, or a particular application that you'd like to know about? If it is, type it in the chat now. All right, where's my emotional map? There you go. All right. Can you guys see this map okay? How to snap a vulnerable person away from predators by cheering them up. Okay, that's a little bit more on the influence side. I don't know that that's going to help us, if that's going to be directly relevant to face reading, but if we have time, we can talk about some strategies. And for those of you who are worried about predators, you're actually going to want to pay attention to the packages we put together, because we put some programs in there that are specific to how to deal with predators and manipulators and the bad guys of the world, so to speak. So the first thing we're going to talk about, if it's okay with you, I'd like to go right down the center of this diagram really quickly. Okay, so the first lines I want us to look at are these lines right in the center of the forehead. This area in Chinese medicine is called the seat of the stamp, or otherwise known as the father's blessing area. And this particular area, let me see if I can erase this. No, I guess that's not the one I use. So the seat of the stamp tells us a huge amount. Matter of fact, this whole area right here is a treasure trove of speed profiling data. So first and foremost, when you look at the space between a person's eyebrows or how far apart their actual eyes are, this tells us how well they get along in groups, in corporate hierarchies, in places that are socially or professionally competitive. In the Chinese systems, this area was called the father's blessing or the seat of the stamp. And so when you see somebody whose eyebrows are fairly wide apart, these people tend to be relatively easygoing. They tend to also make a lot of money. They're very they know how to deal with corporate structures and corporate hierarchies, so they deal with protocols really, really well. Now, the closer together a person's eyebrows are, so the closer together they are, the more impatient this person tends to be with protocols, ritual, things of that nature. So if you have somebody who's the space between their eyebrows is very, very close, or their space between their eyes is very, very close, these people tend to not want to follow the pecking order. They want to climb the corporate ladder or hierarchy as quickly and as cleanly as they can, and they think they're entitled to something just because they want it, right? Now, that doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means that these people are not really the best suited for people who are going to be in a corporate hierarchical structure. These are people who are better suited for being entrepreneurs or for occupations where they're largely autonomous, right? Now, you'll notice that there's some lines. Let me see if I can get a thinner. Okay. You notice there are some lines right here. Now, when you see double lines like this, what you're looking at is somebody who is chronically impatient or annoyed. So irritation, annoyance, and impatience. These people will also tend to be a little bit more on the dominant side, right? They'll be a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more assertive. Okay. Now, what does this mean? It means that these people are always in a hurry. They don't have, they're always in a rush, right? The one you really want to watch out for, and if you have this, again, I'm not picking on you, is when you see a single line down the center. Okay. We call this marking a suspended needle or a suspended sword. And the reason that we call that a suspended needle or suspended sword is, and what it indicates is that this indicates anger. It indicates repressed anger specifically, right? Usually between a father and a son, or a son and a father. It can also be a mother towards a daughter or a mother towards a son, right? Or any power dynamic where one person is the authority, the other person is trying to express themselves or to kind of step into their power. When you see a marking like this, it almost always indicates that at some point in this person's life, they tried to express themselves. They were in a disagreement with somebody. There was a boundary issue at play, and this person got angry. And when they got angry, they pushed back, and they pushed back hard. And what happened was, for whatever reason, when they pushed back really hard, they got punished for expressing that level of anger. And so in that moment, they made a decision. So let me jump out of this really quick. So this is a really, really important trait, and I see it a lot, right? I call these the driving lines. So if you've ever been in California in traffic, you got this going all the time. One of the folks in the YouTube said, well, it could also be confused. Aren't people who are confused usually annoyed or irritated? Because what? Like they're frustrated, right? So it's that frustration line. Like you want to move forward and you can't, right? Either because they don't know what to do or it's not working or something's not happening, right? But that single line indicates that this person let their anger out. And when they let their anger out, they were punished for it. They were punished for it. Because they were punished for it, they made an unconscious decision that because expressing that level of anger was dangerous, they were never going to allow that level of anger to be expressed again. And so if you can imagine, if this is the sum total of your ability to succeed in the world, to accomplish things, right? You take it and you cut it in half. Now, what happens with that is that will manifest as usually some form of self-sabotage. So you'll see many times people with this marking, they will become very good at something, but they'll never really get to the level of renown that they want or that people think they should. In fact, what happens many times when you see this marking is they'll start in a particular craft or a particular trade or a particular business. They'll get to a certain level and they're just about to make that transition into the next level, like going from a small business to a medium business or a medium business to a large, and they'll lose interest or they'll do something to blow themselves up, right? And then they'll have to start over somewhere else in some other trade or some other direction, and they'll build themselves up and then they'll lose interest or blow themselves up again. And it'll be a recurring pattern. And the reason for that is because if this is all your power and you're only going to this, you keep running into that block, that anger that you've got, and it holds you back. The anger energy is connected to the wood element of the body. The wood element of the body is related to the achieving energy of the body. And so if you put a block in your achieving energy, it keeps you from moving forward in life at some point. And you'll either hit a wall and you just won't go any further, or you'll just keep reinventing the wheel. You'll go, you'll blow up, you'll lose interest, you'll start again. You'll keep going and you'll stop and you'll blow up and you'll start again. And so I know a lot of these people with this line, they are brilliant at a bunch of different stuff, but they never seem to get beyond a certain level of financial status or professional levels, right? They're very competent people. The other thing I see with this particular marking is a lot of validation-seeking behavior. Now, that validation-seeking behavior can come in one of two ways. It's usually passive-aggressive. In other words, these people are always like, they've never really released the original fight that caused the marking. So anyone they view as an authority figure, they will juxtapose that person as the person that they're trying to win the argument with, right? So you'll often see passive-aggressive undertones with this person. The other one is kind of a reverse validation or a victim frame where the person's doing all these things to get the approval of an authority figure, right? So that marking, there's a lot that goes into that marking. Now, the first part with the anger and the failure to launch, those are the things that I learned from my teacher, Lillian. The rest of it, I observed through clients, and I observed through my influence and profiling work that pattern kept coming up. So if you've got a marking here, you're not broken, you're just pissed off, right? And if you can get somebody who can help you to release that anger, then you will find all the other limiters to your forward progress will start to go away and dissolve. Okay. Usually I end with this marking because there's so much to it. But a lot of you guys are in those holding patterns where you keep trying to go ahead and get forward, and something seems to be blocking you. If you've got this kind of marking, you just found it. Okay. So now what you need to do is you need to figure out, okay, if that's even potentially true, what do I do about it? Where do I go? How do I fix it? Right? Would you guys be interested in learning how to fix it? This means yes, this means no. Okay, cool. All right, well, if you'll bear with me, I have a set of programs I've put together for you that will help you actually Get rid of all that stuff. He says 72 years on hold. All right. You guys ready to rock this? All right. Then if it's okay with you, I'd like to present what I got. This is my face reading for fun and profit, how to read anyone instantly home study course. Now, don't let the name fool you. It's not just a face reading course. It starts with face reading, and then it takes you through how to defend yourself against social predators, how to profile people, but also how to clear blocks to your success. All right. I didn't open this can. I didn't take this line with you just to throw things together. There's a reason why I put these things together the way I did. So let's talk about what you're going to be getting as a byproduct of this package. So first of all, the Face Reading for Fun and Profit, How to Read Anyone Instantly home study course is all about helping you take your life to the next level. It's about understanding yourself first and other people second. Now, I know a lot of us, we're more interested in how do we do this with other people, but believe me when I tell you, if you can understand yourself, everybody else gets easier. Everybody else gets easier. That's if you, there's no, you know, if you ever heard of the old guy Archimedes who said, give me a lever and a place to stand, give me a lever long enough and a place to stand, and I'll move the world. That's you. You are the lever, you are the place to stand, you are the fulcrum, right? And the world is everybody else. And if you can control those things, then you can get pretty much anyone you want to do anything you want or give you anything you want, right? But it has to start with you. It's going to teach you how to read people instantly. One of the biggest drawbacks or the biggest complaints I get from my face reading clients is once they learn this, they can't turn it off. It's like the moment somebody walks in, boom, 90-second profile done. And it's like, there's no secrets, right? You know who this person is. You know what they're going to do. Even if you don't know them personally, you know what kind of a life they've been living just by looking at their face, right? And then you can get even more, the more you get to pass the active profiling techniques down, the easier it becomes to predict their behaviors, right? What are they going to do in a certain situation or circumstance? And you can use those superpowers to help more people. It's going to cause you to feel confident. You're going to naturally move through the world with more power and comfort and understanding because nobody will really be a secret to you anymore. I mean, everybody has some secrets, but who people are, how they behave, the patterns that are governing their life are going to become very, very apparent to you. Things that they don't even know about themselves, you'll be able to spot in seconds just by looking at their facial architecture, right? That'll allow you to win the game of life. It's about moving through the world, putting more wins in your win column and leaving people better off than you found them. Now, one of the things I'm going to warn you about when you master, even if you don't master, if you just get a basic understanding of face reading, you're going to be beating people off with a stick because the moment they know you know this, they will not leave you alone. They will be asking you to read their face. They will ask you to read their kid's face. They'll be asking for your advice on everything. So you'll be the life of the party everywhere you go, right? Lillian wound up spending most of her time barricaded in her home because the moment anybody found out she was a face reader, the lines would be out the door, right? First time I taught face reading at HypnoThoughts Live Hypnosis Convention, it was supposed to be a 2-hour talk on a Sunday. 4 hours later, I'm still reading faces and teaching classes, right? These people could not get enough. This will happen to you too. So if you want a big bump to your social life, but you also want the ability to actually cherry pick who gets to be part of your life versus who doesn't, this is a big win for you, okay? So everything I'm about to share with you is going to expire tonight, October 28th, 2025 at 11:59 p.m. So we're going to start with the Secrets of Face Reading Home Study Course. This is everything that in that little box I drew on the face, the space between the eyes, the eyebrow, the forehead, everything you can see above a mask. Because that's actually when I came out. I came out with this program right before COVID. And so everything in section 1 was everything you could see because it wasn't covered by the mask, right? So this is going to teach you the powerful, proven real-world face reading skills and psychological secrets of personality, temperament, trauma. It's really a great home study course. Now, I will tell you something up front, and I don't know how you're going to process this. You can see a lot of things on the face. One of the things that I am hesitant to suggest that you might be able to read is character. I can look at a person's facial architecture. I can look at the size of their brow bone, the shape of their chin, the size of their ears, the prominence and boniness or fleshiness of their cheeks, and get a pretty good idea of what their personality is. What I don't know is if that's a good personality or a negative personality. Is that somebody who is going to be a protector or a predator? There are certain characteristics that we're going to talk about that lend themselves more towards one versus the other. But the vast majority of the traits that you're going to see, they will give you personality, they will give you temperament, they will tend to give you how they respond in certain environments, but they won't necessarily give you that person's character. To define a person's character, you've got to do deeper profiling. You've got to go through their social media. You've got to go through their groups and associations. You got to pay attention to their focus when they're interacting with you, what they focus on. You've got to be willing to do a little bit more investigative work to determine character, right? So I'm just going to be very, very transparent about that. You're going to learn how to assess personality and temperament many times within 90 seconds. We're going to teach you about thinking and decision-making styles. We're going to teach you how to unlock a person's emotional traumas after you map them so that you can help them fix them or recover from them. How to deal with and ascertain a person's management style. You can, as you can probably imagine, people who are very data-driven have a much different management style many times than people who are very instinct or gut-driven versus someone who's very pragmatic or pragmatism-driven. They're going to have a different management style. Someone who's a more water personality, who has more estrogen dominance in their system, which is usually a rounder face, fleshier face, they're going to have a different management style than someone who's a very wood or testosterone, adrenaline-driven face. Okay. One of the things we'll talk about in the program is the correlation and the connection between facial qualities and certain predominances of neurotransmitters. So is somebody more dopaminergic versus serotonergic? Are they more testosterone and adrenaline driven versus more estrogen and oxytocin driven? The predominance of those neurotransmitters will show in your face. And this is one of the ways that faces can change. If you're someone who has a very watery, estrogenic facial feature, right? Very round, very deep set eyes, very fleshy, and you start going to the gym and you start pumping a lot of iron and you start getting more and more woody, your body will start to become more angular. Your face will start to develop more of a ropiness to it, right? Because you're increasing the testosterone in your body, right? That will change your facial architecture, right? So faces change a lot depending on lifestyle. And that's one of the really cool things to understand. One of the old Chinese sayings is, when you're born, you're as close to your original face, to that true spiritual soul being that you are outside of a body, than you'll ever be. By the time you hit your 50s, you've got the face you earned. And I've seen that to be true more often than not. We're going to teach you about sexual and romantic capabilities, how to manage money and resources. Different facial types manage money differently. Right. And so if you understand what your predispositions are, you can make behavioral changes that will in time change your face, but they'll also change how you manage your resources. You'll be able to connect with people much more powerfully. You'll be able to understand yourself better, predict human behavior. And perhaps one of the best parts is when you really get the profiling stuff down, you'll never be fooled again. I mean, it's very, it happens from time to time, but it's very hard to pull the wool over my eyes. Right? I let people think they're getting away with stuff even when they're not. Right? If you only knew what I see, right? But it's true enough to be true. But don't take my word for it. Talk to the veterans in the chat; they'll tell you. Now, the total value on this program is $1,997. But as you can probably guess, we've got a few extra bonuses to go with that. So if you grab your course right now, what we're going to do is we're going to give you a few really cool extra bonuses. Now, people were asking a lot about predators. They're asking a lot about lie detection. They're asking a lot about, how do I stop people from taking advantage of me? So what we've done is we've put one of our best-selling, most powerful courses, we've bundled it with the face reading to make it even more powerful for you, right? And this is our Defense Against the Dark Arts training program. This program, by the way, was voted the #1 NLP training program in the world by globalgurus.org for 2022 and 2023, I believe it was. And this is a course that will literally take you from soup to nuts in how to profile people, read their faces, detect lies, and really begin to navigate behavioral influence and personality profiling better than any other course on the planet. It's the fastest, easiest way to do this. Let me see. I'm trying to find my little blurb, but I can't find it. So this is a really amazing course, and it comes with a complete manual. And here's what we got. Let's look at this really quick. So first couple, because it is based on our Killer Influence, original Killer Influence syllabus, it's going to teach you how to think like a master influencer in profile. It's going to teach you how to control your own psycho-emotional state so no one else can. It's going to teach you power rapport skills for connecting with anyone, anytime, anywhere, all of which are amplified when you combine it with face reading. I'm going to teach you the 7 most irresistible hypnotic language patterns that exist, how to manage the emotional states of others and use use your face reading and your language to move people from where they are to where you want them to be, how to access people's internal behavior codes, like their decision-making process, and be able to use that to hear more yeses in your life. I'm going to teach you how to emotionally bond to anyone's deepest desires and get them to want to do what you want them to do. They'll actually thank you for it, right? Where's my little, there we go. But there's more to this. We're also going to teach you the fundamentals of lie detection. Okay, how to read anyone instantly, how to spot sociopaths, narcissists, and other evil a-holes who might, like you guys mentioned human traffickers. We'll talk about the dark triad. We'll talk about Machiavellianism. We'll talk about how human traffickers and grifters and con artists work and what are the things that they're doing to try to short circuit your thinking process and get their hooks into your emotions and your needs. We'll talk about speed profiling secrets for preventing predators from getting their hooks into you in the first place. We're going to talk about predatory psychology and how to turn the tables on narcissists, Machiavellians, dark triads, things of that nature. How to hypnotically reframe techniques for winning arguments, keeping yourself from being gaslighted. We're going to teach you the 21 conversational red flags all narcissists and sociopaths exhibit when you call them on their bullshit, when they try to get out of being held responsible for the things that they've done. These are the 21 things that they'll try to do. You'll understand them instantly, and you'll be able to turn the tables on them once and for all. And of course, we're going to teach you how to spot micro-expressions, changes in the subtle facial architecture that let you know, hey, there's more going on here below the surface than meets the eye. So we're going to take you from face reading at the passive level all the way down to the very dynamic, active micro-expression level and knit it all together for you. Total value on this is $1,997. Total combined value is $39.94. If you just got these 2 courses individually on our website, that's what it would run you. But we're not done yet. We're also going to include our Identity by Design Hypnotherapy Home Study course. This is a $1,497 value. This is our flagship hypnotherapy training program. This program, when you go through it, you will have the ability, without a doubt, if you do the drills and you follow along and you do the things the way we teach you to do them, you will unlock your ability to hypnotize anyone, anytime, anywhere, under any situation or circumstance. You want to get rid of that line between your eyes? This will help you do it. We'll teach you how to remove the blocks to your success, the limiting beliefs, the self-sabotage, things you didn't even know you had. We'll teach you how to remove the hidden patterns that keep repeating in your life. Usually if you have a pattern that keeps repeating, it's because there's something you haven't resolved. There's a reason your unconscious mind is holding on to it and perpetuating the pattern that you haven't figured out yet. I'm going to show you how to go right to where that program is stored and extract exactly what you need to learn from it and let everything else go, and that pattern will disappear. It'll just fade away because you don't need to have it anymore, because your unconscious mind already, you've convinced your unconscious mind that you've learned that lesson. And so you'll be free of it. Finally, I'm going to teach you how to change the crappy voice inside your head so that it stops tearing you down and starts building you up. We're going to teach you how to remove all the negative energy from your past memories, take that energy, purify it, and move it into your positive memories so that when you look back on your past, your path is so much more positive, so much more powerful. You'll find your face changing just from that, just because the stuff you're holding on to isn't powerful anymore. And so things will just dissolve, right? Finally, we're going to teach you how to install the traits, qualities, and characteristics of people who you truly admire, people who you truly want to be more like. We'll teach you how to do that. It's all part of this particular program. It's a $1,497 value. We're going to tack this on as a free gift just for grabbing your face reading home study course secrets package. Total combined value on this is $5,491. We're not done yet, though. We're going to include other types of people reading for fun and profit. This is our body language secrets home study course. This was actually an earlier course before I really started teaching face reading. I was focused on other aspects of body language, and specifically for the dating market, specifically for the law enforcement market. So this is to teach you how to understand the body language of attraction, the 7 universal stages that people go through from meeting a stranger to wanting to be fully intimate. There's 7 layers or 7 stages of body language that once you understand it, you can look at any 2 people in any situation or circumstance and know exactly how they're relating to each other without any sound, right? Knowing if they're into each other, if they're not into each other, if they're moving towards unity, towards partnership, towards intimacy, or away from it. We're going to show you the 10 most powerful lie traits that indicate someone might be lying and other deceptive behaviors. We're going to teach you how to influence people without your words, okay? How to project charm and confidence and charisma on command, and how to understand men better. Ladies will teach you, or men will teach you how to understand women better, and why you need to understand that each gender has its own set of terms and meanings that it assigns to the same thing. When I used to teach attraction classes back in the day, I would never teach an attraction class, if I could help it, that was just to one gender. I always wanted both genders in the room because they needed to understand how each gender was interpreting the same data point differently, right? For example, one of the things that I discovered that the biggest challenges that ladies had was they weren't worried about being approached. Like most men are worried about walking up to somebody they find attractive and starting a conversation. That was not what most women found problematic. The problem that they had was they were afraid that if someone came up and started talking to them, they wouldn't get the message that they weren't interested and not go away, right? And so one of the things that came from that was the understanding that women needed to realize that men were terrified to approach women they found attractive, which most women don't understand, right? And men didn't realize that when they're in a conversation with somebody, there's all these little subtle body language cues that a woman is sending out that every woman in the place picks up and understands. If you ever had a girlfriend and you're walking out in the world with her and she looks at a couple and she goes, oh, she's totally into him. And you're like, what? It's because women's biology and their evolution has created a much more advanced and aware social radar than the average man before the whole woke movement and everything else happened, have even thought about. And so there's a lot of things that are being misinterpreted. A lot of guys think that when they approach a woman and they're talking to her, and all of a sudden she turns into a bitch, that it was a sudden thing. The truth is it wasn't. When women go into that cold, get away from me mode, it's because they've exhausted every other way that they know to subtly let you know to go away, right? Because those methods are only perceptible by other women. It flies right over the heads of men, right? And so it's not that the other side is stupid, it's that you have 2 completely different sets of signal interpretation going on. And if you're not in the same room, you can't practice the translation, right? And so I'm sorry, I'm going to get off my soapbox. It was a big frustration point for me when I was trying to teach people how to understand the other gender. Because you go to a dating coach and they try to make the other side wrong, and it says kumbaya for my gender and go to hell for yours. And I don't like that idea, right? The biggest challenges we all have, ladies and gentlemen, is the disconnect between the intention behind the communication and the other person's interpretation of it. And if we can bridge that gap, and that's what these skills do, if we can bridge that gap, 80-90% of our conflicts go away. They really do, right? We just have to be aware enough to do it. If you want to learn how to eliminate behaviors that weaken your influence, close more deals, get more dates, and just get along with people better, connect more, this is a really powerful program. right? It's a $1,497 value. We're going to throw this in for free. Total combined value on this is $6,988, but we're not done yet. So let's just review this. So we're going to get the Secrets of Face Reading home study course for $1,997. We're going to give you the Speed Profiling Defense Against the Dark Arts training for free. It's a $1,997 value. We're going to give you the Identity by Design Hypnotherapy home study course valued at $1,497. We're going to give that to you for free. We're going to give you People Reading for Fun and Profit, 2-day intensive, $1,497 value. And total value on this is $6,988. Pretty good deal. But today, I want to give you the better deal. I want you, it's Halloween. We're going to celebrate. So I'm going to give you a spooky good deal. It's my treat to you. You're not going to have to pay $69.88. Oh, nay, nay. What about $34.97? Would that be a good deal? Half price? Damn skippy. Nope. What about $14.97? That's a good deal. That's less than one course. Nope. For those of you who are ready to go, who want to pull back the curtain and see what's behind it, you can get it all for one low installment of just $797. Or we're going to actually go one better for you guys today. Or you can make 3 easy installments of just $297. So you can break that up into 3 payments of $297 or one installment of $797. It's all for you, right? Because I want you to have this. I want you to be able to really move the needle with your life. I want you to be able to read people. I want you to have the skills, right? And I want you to have it at the lowest price possible and still maintain my integrity, right? All you got to do to get yours is go to www.nlppower.com/face. www.nlppower.com/FACE. That'll take you to a special page, and you can get that for one low installment of $797, or you can break that up into 3 easy installments of $297. Right now, my web people are cursing at me because I didn't tell them I was going to do that $297 thing. So if you get to the page and you see it at $397, don't worry, it'll be $297 real quick. Or you can just cut through the BS and grab it for the one installment. All right. Now, here's my promise to you. Study this material, apply this material for a full 60 days. If after 60 days, you're not understanding yourself better, you're not understanding other people better, if you're not reading people instantly, within 90 seconds, you know them from the top of their head to the end of their chin. If you're not using those skills to attract more success, to manifest the life of your dreams, to score more wins in the victory column, if you're not feeling more secure and confident and able to deal with people in a more powerful way, then I don't want your money. I don't want your investment. I will refund your entire tuition. If after 60 days, before the end of 60 days, you're not 100% satisfied with the skill set you're learning, I will give you a full 100% refund. There's no risk here, guys. You have absolutely nothing to risk and everything to gain. So I want you to go ahead and invest. Click that link right now, www.nlppower.com/FACE, www.nlppower.com/face. And let me just get that off my PowerPoint. Okay. So for those of you who are ready to go, the link should be showing up in your chat at any moment. Moss and Mia are standing by to answer any questions that you have. If you decide to call us, keep in mind that there's usually a flood of people calling at about the same time. So if you get our voicemail, please, 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 by all means, leave your contact information. Leave your name, your phone number, your email address, the time you called, what you're interested in. Because if you do that, if you call and you leave that information, we will call you back immediately or within 24 hours. If you leave that information and we call you back within 24 hours, you will qualify for these bonuses, this package, and anything else that we might be adding. If you call and you don't want to leave that information and then you try to call us tomorrow, you will not qualify for any of the goodies, right? So click your links right now. If you liked even a little bit of what I've talked about, if you've resonated or you see how any of this could make a big difference in your life, you owe it to yourself to just click that link, meet me on the other side so we can start training together, okay? For those of you who are ready, and again, this is good until October 28th, 2025, so you have a little bit of time, or do you, right? So let's look at this. If you grab your link now, if you click that link right now, you're also going to get the following fast action bonuses. First thing that's going to happen, you're going to get a 3-month mentorship with me. We're going to give you a 90-day free trial membership to my NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Practice Group. This is a group that is now officially 15 years old. We celebrated our anniversary on October 10th. On October 10th, 2010, we started the NLP Power Mastermind, and it was designed specifically for what I'm about to describe to you. It's designed for you to build and work on specific skills for you to be able to apply in the real world. You will not get a certificate from the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Group Archive. What you get is hands-on training. What you get is feedback. What you get is access to 15 years of archived video training on everything from face reading to lie detection to body language to dating and attraction to law of attraction to trauma resolution, accelerated learning, improved memory, hypnosis, hypnotherapy, neuro-linguistic programming, hypnotic languaging, any form of energy work, meditation, and spiritual practice you can think of that's in my wheelhouse. We have trained every month, month after month, for 15 years. And we've videotaped or video recorded every single one of them. And you have full access to that 15-year video archive as a byproduct of this program. Just being part of this membership for 90 days gives you full unfettered access to all of the videos. You're going to find them in 3 places. You're going to find them on our NLP Power website. You're going to find them in our private Facebook group. You're going to find them on our members only Diamond and Gold Plus levels in the NLP in the YouTube channel, right? We're going to consolidate all of those within the next 12 months. We're going to consolidate all of that off of the YouTube channel, off of the Facebook page, off of the NLP Power website. And it's going to be in its own Kajabi site on davidsnyder.com. That's my new all-in-one portal for my coaching programs and stuff like that. There'll be communities there, things of that nature, but it'll be all archived and with the help of AI, hopefully somewhat indexed for people, right? You're going to get 90 days to try it out. If after 90 days, you're having a good time, you like the people, you like what you're learning, it's useful for you, we'll show you how to extend your membership. If after 90 days, you got what you needed, you feel like I feel like you need to go through life as a solo act, no harm, no foul, we'll bid you the best of luck and send you on your merry way. But you'll go on your merry way with the exact skills and tactics and training that you need to move the needle in your life and become the very best version of yourself, okay? It's a $1,997 value. We're going to give this to you. We're going to gift it to you absolutely free if you're one of the first 20 people to click that NLP Power /face link and reserve your face reading package right now. Total combined dollar value on this is $8,985. But we're not done yet. We're also going to throw in face reading level 2. This is everything below the mask. So once again, you'll be able to learn personality, temperament. You'll understand how does somebody use their language better, by how they look, how their eyes look. Do they have a hooked inner canthus or a rounded inner canthus? That tells you if someone's going to be more sarcastic and more verbally manipulative. Are their eyes upturned versus downturned? Or is their mouth downturned or upturned? How generous is a person? What kind of leader are they by the shape of their chin? How do they handle risk by the size and shape of their ears? How do they deal with altered states? Do they have a tendency to move towards substance abuse? Are they more spiritual just by looking at their temples? All these different aspects of how to detect lies, how to read their spirit, how to create a more fuller, more robust personality profile. What does their trauma history look like? What does their behavioral profile look like? What does their temperament look like? And how do those things relate in terms of my romantic needs and desires, my financial and business needs? Are these people going to be good salesmen? Are they going to be very spiritually oriented? Are they going to be action takers? Are they going to be comfort-seeking people, people who are more of a nurturer versus a doer. And they're not mutually exclusive, but you're going to find that a lot of your earthy type people who are very nurturing by nature, they have a different work ethic than someone who's very woody. And so they'll both work hard, but they'll work hard for different reasons. And the way that that hard work expresses itself will be different. You'll learn about those things in face reading level 2. It'll be your transition into the more energetic levels of face reading and how that all works. So if you have a spiritual or an energetic interest or want to find a way to pragmatically transition into those disciplines in a way that makes sense and actually lets you do something practical, face reading level 2 and the entire face reading syllabus is really a good place for you to experience that. It's a $1,997 value. We're going to give this to you for free. So if you did all the math, you're looking at $10,982. Okay. And last but not least, next 21 people to register, you're going to get a special invitation to an invitation only, a special online face reading certification boot camp. This is my face reading love, lies, and leadership for fun and profit. How to read anyone instantly boot camp. This is a course that's going to take you from levels 1 and 2 of the face reading and into more applied sciences. We're going to go deeply, deeply, deeply into passive and active profiling. We're going to go deeply into romantic and sexual compatibility, dating and matchmaking applications using face reading. We're going to talk about deception cues, deception indicators, both in terms of active facial profiling and what might indicate someone who's more likely to lie based on the passive profiling. Okay? Who's likely to be more honest? How do you connect with people? How do you use these things for leadership? If I look at somebody's face, I can tell you if they have a pointed chin, they're going to lead groups one way. If they have a square or wider chin, they're going to lead in a very different way, right? If they have a lot of flesh on their cheekbones, they're going to be one type of leader. If they have a very, very tight, bony cheekbones, they're going to be a very different type of leader. How do you use those things? Do they have a wide space? Are they going to be good in groups? Are they pioneers? Are they people who need to be on their own, doing their own thing? Are they group people, people who we can trust to be as part of a team? We're going to go through all of that and more during that 3 days. It's going to be done online through Zoom, and we're going to build on all of the things in your program, plus some things we haven't talked about, right? We'll pull back the curtain, we'll pull back more face reading secrets that are only going to be revealed in this course. It's a 3-day program. There is a certification attached to it, and this is the first time that we're opening this program. This is brand new. I'm really excited about it. It'll be November 7th through the 9th, 2025. And there is no live component. In other words, you don't have to come to San Diego. It's all going to be done live online in real time through Zoom. It's a $2,750 value. Okay. It's going to teach you how to read anyone instantly, predict behavior in very specific situations, contexts, and circumstances, how to gain deep, deep, deep level rapport, speed read people's emotions, influence people more easily, detect lies, hidden traumas, and all other types of, like your suspended needle. If I get somebody who has a suspended needle in my business, what can I expect? What should I be on the lookout for? Those are the things we're going to be covering in Love, Lies, and Leadership for Fun and Profit. Okay. The questions were asked, what if I have some of these courses? What if I bought Face Reading 1 or Face Reading 2, or I have Defense Against the Dark Arts? Not a problem. If you have any of the programs we mentioned in this special offer, all you got to do is pick up the phone or shoot Mia or Moss an email. Let us know what you have, and you can choose any product that we offer of equal or greater value, or equal or lesser value, equal or lesser value, and we'll swap it out for you. There's no reason you buying the same program twice just to get a bonus or a program you don't have. We'll help you customize that package in a way that makes sense, that is in alignment with our pricing guidelines, so that you get exactly what you need to move forward in your life at exactly the rate and speed that you're ready to move. Okay. So total value on this is $13,732. So just to review for you guys, what you're going to get is the Secrets of Face Reading Home Study course plus the bonuses. It's a $1,997 value by itself, but we're going to give you Defense Against the Dark Arts for free. We're going to give you Real World Hypnosis Identity by Design Hypnotherapy Home Study course for free. We're going to give you People Reading for Fun and Profit, how to look at body language in a whole different way for free. We're going to give you 90 days of NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring, hands-on mentoring and group training for free. We're going to give you Face Reading for Fun and Profit Level 2 for free, and you get the VIP invitation to Face Reading Love, Lies, and Leadership, November 7th through the 9th, live through Zoom, $2,750 value. We're going to give that to you absolutely free, and you'll probably wind up getting certified as a byproduct of this. So just roll with it. And by the way, Lillian used to charge $750 a session, an hour, to do face readings. So if you're looking for an alternative income stream, a way to make a little extra, Bitcoin or whatever currency you use, this is a great way to add more value to your practice, right? Total value on this, $13,732. All you got to do to get yours, one installment is $797, or 3 easy installments of $297 each. Go to www.nlppower.com/FACE. Click those links right now. Grab your course so that I can launch a new generation of face readers into the world, and we can make the world a better place, starting with our own. All right. So I'm going to give you guys an 8-minute break to go ahead, text any questions that you have, anything else that you ask, post the questions or whatever. When we come back, we're going to pick up with the map of the face. We'll talk about the other things that you want most to know about, and how to take this training even further and start applying it directly to your life. All right, that's what I got. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I'll see you at 5:55 Pacific time. All right, I came back a little early. If people have questions, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. either about the program or about face reading. So go ahead and type your questions in the chat. Me and Moss are standing by in the chats as well. So if you have something else you want to ask about, we can help you. You guys have no questions for me? Nothing? Really? Bueller? 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 Not at this time. Okay. So Didi says the face marking described as falling down, suspended needle, suspended sword. That's anger or fear both. It's usually anger. Fear you're going to see in the chin. You might see it in the size of the ears, but fear usually shows up in the chin. Casey's asking, how do fillers, facelifts, and Botox affect results? Well, whoever thought injecting neurotoxin into your face was a good idea, well, if you want to make a lot of money, I guess it works. What happens is you will lose affect when you inject something like a Botox into an area, that it paralyzes that area, right? And so it will have an impact on your liver energy. Like if a lot of people inject it here, it'll impact your liver energy. It'll be harder to read that area. But one of the things that people don't get is that you can tell when people have had work done. You can tell when people have worked. So even if they have like a suspended needle or suspended sword here and they Botox it out, which I haven't seen anybody really effectively do. Not well. But then again, my exposure to that is limited. So, but you can still always read. You can read the brow bone. You can read the nose. You can read the cheekbones. You can read the size of the ears. You can read the contours and the slants of the eyes. All of these things have meaning. All of these things tell us something about that individual. Now, one of the biggest, and again, this goes again to your question, Casey. When I teach this webinar, I tend to teach the things that are most immediately useful instantly. Okay. So when I was going through the entire face reading syllabus that I was given, and I have even more stuff now, what I wanted was what's immediately actionable, what's immediately workable, right? And so to me, the things I'm sharing with you, and we're going to pick up with the map of the face in just a moment, these things are immediately applicable, right? You don't have to go through 5 days of training or 5 years of training, for that matter, to be able to apply all the deeper nuances. It's more about what can we just pick up, like literally have the chart like right next to my computer. And as I'm talking to somebody on Zoom, okay, oh, there's a suspended needle. Oh, there's a small ears. Oh, there's a pointed chin. Oh, there's fleshy cheekbones, right? I can look, oh, there's a skepticism line. There's a joy line. There's a sadness line. There's a disempowerment line. I can see those things right there and know exactly what they are, right? Traditionally, the way that you would read faces is you would look at somebody's face, you would connect with them, and then whatever jumped out at you first would be the feature that you talked about. I was trained that way. I'm not a big fan of it for beginners. And the reason for that is because you don't know where to start. I think that people learn to read faces better by having a system, and a system that is in alignment with what they're more organically predisposed to do. So let me explain that. When people look at a face, they look at it in one of three ways. Okay, let me change this picture so that you have something cool to look at beside my offer. Okay. So when people look at a face, they look at it in one of three ways. They look at it from, they gaze at a person's eyes, or they gaze at a person's mouth, or they bounce. They go from the eyes to the mouth, from the eyes to the mouth, from the eyes to the mouth, from the eyes to the mouth. When people read a web page or any kind of printed material, and this, again, if you come from a culture that reads from right to left, then this is probably the inverted for you. But in most westernized cultures where we read from left to right, you scan a page in a zigzag fashion. So my thinking was, if we take all the 5 element stuff and we put that in a separate program for people who are interested in energetics, we have the classic face reading systems. We take everything else and we systematize it for the Western mind. And we organize it based on 3 zones: upper zone, middle zone, lower zone. But we also base it on, what do people do with their eyes when they're looking at a face anyway, and how do they read? So the systematized version that I teach you guys in this program teaches you to go from hairline, zigzagging down the face, to the chin. And you do that with everyone, where you literally check boxes. Round hairline, or mother's hairline, V-shaped hairline, and you just check the box, and you automatically know what those features mean, right? So it's a systematic approach, right? So that's what you don't need. The best part, but the beautiful thing about that approach is you don't need to know anything about the 5 Chinese elements. You don't need to know about yin or yang. You don't need to know about Jing, Qi, Shen, Ling, Ming, all those esoteric terminologies and energetic spiritual terms that we use in Chinese medicine. You don't need to know any of that. You just need to know, this is the shape of the hairline, this is what it means. This is the shape of the forehead, this is what it means. This is the shape of the eyebrow, this is what it means. This is the shape of the eyebrows, this is what it means. This is the direction. This is, you just check boxes, and in 90 seconds you can have a profile, right? So that's how this particular program is designed to teach you. Now, we'll talk about those other things, but we won't necessarily spend as much time on them, because there's other things that we need to learn that are a little bit more practical and get us moving. That's where I was going with this, was that I wanted something that was immediately useful. And so the things I zeroed in on, let me just find my little cursor thingy here. I can make it bigger again. So that's why I settled on these 3 charts as a place to start, because if you can nail somebody's emotions, their decision-making strategy, what their private face versus their public face is like, you can pretty much push any button you want. So let's look at the next feature on the face that I want to share with you. So right below the suspended, right below the annoyance and the suspended needle, you'll see these markings right here. And these look like little diagonal wrinkles that just come down the side of the nose. These are really important. I used to see these quite often in my clinical practice. I still saw this one a whole lot more. This one also involves boundaries, but it has a different energy to it. Let me just, I want to go ahead and adjust my camera a little bit. Okay, this one is called appeasement lines. Now, the way this works, when you see lines on the person's face with this, and this is one of those markings that has some implications to it. One of those implications is it's about boundaries. When you see personal markings like this is somebody who had their boundaries violated. And when their boundaries were violated, they said, no, that's not okay. You can't do that. They pushed back. And when they pushed back, the person or persons they were pushing back against pushed back even harder. And rather than continuing to fight and guard and protect their boundaries, they collapsed and they went into appeasement. They said, "Okay, whatever you want, just don't hurt me, don't punish me, just whatever you want. I'll do it." Right. So this is something that this is a marking you'll see a lot in people who've been persecuted or who've been cowed in some kind of way, where they tried to fight for themselves and they got even more resistance, and rather than keeping on, they collapse. So how many of you are old enough to remember a show called All in the Family? Let me get my chat back up here. Hold on a second. Chat. Here we go. Okay. If you haven't, it's a show that probably could never be made today. Right. But in that show, there was a female character played by Jean Stapleton, and her name was Edith Bunker. Right. And Archie was the classic grumpy, white, middle-aged bigot. Right. And every time Archie yelled or groaned or pissed or moaned, Edith was right there going, "It's okay, Archie. Everything's going to be fine. I'll get you a B. It's going to be great." Right. And so Edith was always all about appeasing Archie's anger or Archie's mood. Right. And so when people are attacked and they push back, and they get pushed, and they're met with more over, and they lapse into appeasement, these lines can make themselves visible. Right? Now, here's the extrapolation on this. What's the pattern that this facial marking indicates? Anybody tell me? Can anybody take a guess besides Seth, who's taken every class almost as much as I have? Right? What does that behave? What pattern does this marking indicate? Sorrow or grief? Not really. Sorrow and grief is going to be seen over here. Sorrow and grief is going to show up here. And we'll talk about those. It's on the to-do list. Disgust, people-pleasing, codependency. Okay. Sandra says disgust. All right. You guys are really close. This is David's extrapolation. I don't have a book that I can point to that shows this, but this is what I see. The meta pattern to that marking means that if somebody crosses my boundary and I say no, if that person's just a little bit pushier, I'll give them what they want. Now, can that be people-pleasing? Yes. Can it be something else? Yes. How many people are familiar? Let me go back to my chat so I can see you guys. I love having my chat open so I can read your feedback. How many people here are familiar with a book I've talked about called Red Flags by Dr. Wendy Patrick? Okay. In that book, Dr. Patrick describes the behavior of certain types of sexual offenders. Serial rapists, date rapists. Now, a lot of these people tend to lead a very nomadic lifestyle. In other words, they move into an area, they case the area to figure out where the best victims are. They select a victim, they woo that victim, and one of the ways and then they test that victim or potential victim. What they do is they will have the person pick a restaurant, and then intentionally show up late. And what they're doing, you can read about this in the book. And what they're doing is they're testing the boundaries of that particular target. If the person reads them the riot act, lets them know that it's not cool, and is showing a very strong sense of self and boundaries, they get taken off the hunting list. But if the person just blows it off, says it's okay, makes excuses for the person, this person knows that they've got somebody with very permeable boundaries. And one of the things you can count on with social predators is they will test and violate boundaries in small bits first. And then once they know that you fit their profile, they'll have at you. So when I see this marking, do this. When I see this marking, I get a little nervous because not only is this a sign that somebody's been this kind of person in the past, my belief is that, and you may have read some of this in some of the emails we sent out, like you've met somebody and you instantly knew something was off, but you didn't know why you knew it was off. My personal belief is that these markings are universal markings, that they've been with us since we crawled out of the ocean and actually developed a face to make these markings with. And some part of us instinctively has a dictionary for what certain facial cues and wrinkle lines actually mean. So a lot of times these predatory types have a way of looking at you and knowing things about you they couldn't possibly know. I think this is part of it. I think at some level, they have access to this archive and they know instinctively what certain markings mean and who fits their profile or who fits their target list and who doesn't, right? I think we all have this. I think it's just a question of how much of it do we consciously tap into or unconsciously tap into. My goal here is to help you guys have the conscious and unconscious learnings and access. So this is one of those lines that I think we need to really pay attention to. If we have it, we need to go in and clean it up. We need to fortify those boundaries, and we need to really make sure that we're willing to push back. When we go to defend our boundaries, we need to be willing, if we get pushback, we need to push back even harder, right? That's what keeps those lines from forming. And does that mean somebody might not like us? Yeah, probably. But is it worth it? Right. So this is a line that, or a set of lines that I would be very, very much, especially if you have these lines, or you're a therapist in a therapy world and you see persons with those lines. A lot of times they will not tell you about the source of these. It'll sometimes come out when you're doing your process work, but know at some point, notated on your intake, just those things are probably going to rise up at some point during the therapeutic intervention. So David is asking, is it dangerous to do hypnosis or therapy with such people? No. No, in fact, the people with these markings are the ones who need it the most. They're the ones who need it the most. Ashley's asking, now do I think about it, do teeth mean anything in face reading? Actually, yes. I actually have a chart that maps out teeth. Yeah, one of the things you'll find as you get deeper and deeper and deeper into these systems is everything means something, usually more than one thing, right? It's just when you go to different face reading teachers, they're going to emphasize a different level. So for example, there's 3 other sources besides my teacher Lillian that I've gotten value from. Eric Standop, who is out of Germany, has some great face reading stuff, very, very in alignment with what I learned from Lillian. So I really like his stuff. Matt Fulfer has a lot of great stuff, a little bit more westernized, but very, very actionable. and of course, Joey Yap. Now, Joey covers all aspects of face reading, but his happy place is more on the prognosticative or divination based stuff, like fortune telling, Chinese astrology, things of that, and how it relates to face reading. Lillian knew all that stuff, but she didn't find it as important in today's modern society as the things we're sharing here. So each of the people that I've talked to, they bring something powerful to the face reading archive. Chase's stuff, Paul Ekman's stuff, a lot of good stuff on Helen Fisher's work, even though it wasn't directly related to face reading, gave tremendous credence to the science that certain facial characteristics are the result of a dominance of certain neurotransmitters. So David's asking, the woman you're thinking about is Wendy Patrick. And she wrote 2 books, actually. She wrote Red Flags, which is the introduction to her work. And then she wrote The Psychology of Attraction in Christian Outreach, which, if you like deep level reading, is good. But I don't recommend it for most people. So Logan's asking me about Kabbalah. If there's a Kabbalistic system of face reading, I have not learned it. I wouldn't be surprised if there was, but I haven't studied it, or have I learned it. I'm happy with what I've got because it's been the most consistent and accurate for me. All right, so let's look at what we've talked about so far. We've talked about annoyance and frustration. We've talked about the single line being self-sabotage, anger at a parent or a sibling. We've talked about appeasement lines, which Lillian called disempowerment lines. The next lines we want to look at are right here. And these are little vertical lines that rise up or move towards the upper lip. These lines are known as, hold on a second. These lines are known as over-nurturing lines. And I see these a lot. Over-nurturing lines are the result of a set of rules that a person internalized early in life. So let me explain this to you. When a person is engaging in over-nurturing, they are sacrificing their energy to facilitate somebody else's life. And usually what's behind that is a need for validation, but also a deeper set of hypnotic suggestions. The hypnotic suggestions or rules are that it is better to give than to receive, and that if you give and you give and you give, the world will give back in kind. How many of us were taught that if we just give, the world will give back to us? Show of hands. Right? How many people have noticed that it doesn't always work out that way? That you give and you give and you give, and life never seems to quite give back in proportion, right? Chances are, if you said yes, or sometimes you're at risk of running, you may have these lines or have the risk of developing them. So let me explain to you what the pattern connected to these lines is. People who eventually develop these lines develop them because they're draining their energy. They're giving away their life force to take care of other people. And a lot of times they're doing this because they were taught at a very young age that it's better to give than to receive, and that if you just give enough long enough, the world will give back to you. And what happens is these people do that. They adopt that as the rule of life. That's the way they're supposed to behave. That's who they are. That's the rule. That's what we're going to do, right? And so they do, and they give, and they give, and they give, and people keep taking and taking and taking. And then they ask for more, and she gives more. He gives more. They give, and they give. And the person never seems to get back to the same degree. They perceive this that way. They never perceive that they're getting back to the same degree that they're giving. And at the same time, they see other people not giving, other people not following that rule. And they get angry and they get upset. Okay. And in spite of the fact that they see other people not following the rule, they continue to follow that rule. They don't change. And so what happens is, after seeing that pattern and living that pattern over and over and over again, these lines get deeper, but something else begins to happen. They get bitter. And right, Dee Dee's right with us, right? And that's when these lines show up. These are bitterness lines. Right? But what's between over-nurturing and bitterness? Disappointment. First, they over-nurture. Then they get frustrated. Then they get disillusioned. Then they get disappointed. And then they become bitter. And that's when the dangers really start. Because when you have over-nurturing, disappointment, and bitterness, you have a recipe for a terminal or chronic illness, usually cancer. Because what happens is, if these patterns persist long enough, the person goes into hopelessness. And when they go into hopelessness, they start looking for a way to escape. They start looking for a way to check out. And many times, they will manifest some form of illness as a way to get out. Now, I'm not saying at all that if you have any of these lines, or even all of these lines, that you're going to get a terminal or chronic illness, that you're going to get cancer or something weird like that. I am saying, though, that I have seen these show up on a lot of people, especially in their late 40s, 50s, and 60s, who are suffering from a chronic illness. Usually cancer or some kind of intestinal issue. It's usually intestinal and stomach, because these areas relate directly, if you'll remember, hold on a second. If you remember the little facial chart with all the different organs on it, your large intestine, your small intestine is here, your large intestine is here. So a lot of times what you'll see when you look at this from a Chinese medical diagnostic perspective, you'll see either red spots or a white line that traces around the lips. And this usually indicates frozen or stagnant energy in the large intestine or the small intestine. And then they'll start to develop wrinkles and Jing depletion lines and things of that nature. And it almost always starts as an emotional pattern, right? So again, it's all connected. And the longer I do this work, the more I find these correlations to be true, right? I don't go looking for them. I just observe what appears. So once again, you have frustration, irritation, annoyance, self-sabotage, and a failure to launch, repressed anger. You have appeasement and collapse. You have over-nurturing, disappointment, bitterness, and then the next one is fear. Fear is almost always seen in the chin, right? Now, it's usually not lines like what you're seeing here. I don't understand why Lillian did this in her work, because the fear doesn't usually appear like wrinkles and lines. The fear usually shows up more like, if you've ever looked at an orange peel or a tangerine peel, it has those little dots, those little dimples. That's oftentimes little tiny wrinkles. That's what fear looks like on the chin. If you've got somebody who has those lines and they're not making a face, They're not distorting their skin or grimacing or something like that. This is a person who tends to have a lot of repressed fears. Ilona's asking, do I have a course? Yes, we just finished one last weekend. It's called the Virtual Healing Intensive. You can also clear a lot of that through the Identity by Design training that is included in your package. But there will be another Virtual Healing Intensive coming up later in the year. So if you guys want to swap out your Love, Lies, and Leadership ticket for the Virtual Healing Intensive, we can do that for you as well. But yeah, and especially in the past year or so, I've been doing a lot more transformation work in mass than I have one. I mean, I'm still doing my one-on-one sessions, but I'm doing a lot more group transformation retreats and weekends and stuff like that, because that's just what the universe wants me to do. But I also need to put out practitioners. So we need more people out there, not just receiving this work. We need more people out there doing it. So the short answer is yes, we do have courses for that, Ilona. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. All right. Questions on that? Moss, apparently David wants more information on a package. Can you maybe pull him into a chat or something that won't distract you too much? Yeah. Anyway, let me just go back to, oops, hold on a second. All right. So once again, before we move on to the next phase of the webinar tonight, just a quick reminder that that package is still available. We got a few of the fast action slots left, but they're going pretty quick. So Secrets of Face Reading Home Study Course, valued at $1,997, but you're also going to get the Defense Against the Dark Arts Home Study Course. You're going to get the Real World Hypnosis Identity by Design Hypnotherapy Home Study Program. You're going to get the People Reading for Fun and Profit Home Study Course. You're going to get NLP Power 3-month Mastermind Mentoring Trial Membership and the video archive. You're going to get Face Reading for Fun and Profit Level 2, which will go nicely with your Level 3 certification, which is next, which is the Face Reading Love, Lies, and Leadership Level 3 certification for applied face reading for business and romantic and social applications. Total combined value on this is $13,732. You can get it all for one low installment of just $797, or if you need to, you can break that up into 3 easy installments of just $297 each, and you can start downloading and getting access to your training materials right away. Remember that if you have anything already, if you purchased products from us in the past, and you have any of these, just let Moss or me know, and we'll customize the package for you. You can swap it out for any program of equal or lesser value. So you have a customized package. You don't need to buy the same course twice. You'll also get, if you don't want to come to Love, Lies, and Leadership, then you can take that VIP ticket and apply it towards our healing intensive. When we do our Golden Path workshop coming up, probably end of December, beginning of January, you can do that. If we do the Secrets of Personality Transformation 3-day weekend that I'm thinking about doing, you can apply it for that as well. So that VIP ticket is pretty flexible, and you have it for as long as you until you use it. So if it takes you a year to get to a live event, well, that ticket's going to be good. If it takes you 5 years to come to a virtual event, well, it's still going to be good. You have it until you use it. If you want to gift it to somebody, you can do that too. But I need you to click your link so you can save your spot, so I can continue training you in all the nuances and the protocols that come with face reading and the transformations that come with it. So just go to www.nlppower.com/FACE. Just double click that link and follow the protocols. If you need to, you can reach out to Moss or Mia, and they'll walk you through how to do that. That being said, let's go ahead and get back to more face reading. So my quick question is this been helpful for you guys so far? Have you guys have things you can take? David says, did you fall asleep and miss the detection of liars? No, you did not. All right. What other questions did you have about what I've shown you so far, or where do you guys want to go next? Bueller. Come on, tubers. Don't leave me hanging. I mean, I can always make stuff up. All right, so I'm going to, all right, while we're on the center line of the face. Okay, I'm gonna need you to give me a minute because there's two facial characteristics that I want to share with you, but I have to find them. So just give me 1 minute to find this in my manuals, and I will show this with. Otherwise, I'm going to have to describe it. I wasn't really planning on showing this today, but it's in my level 2 manual, I think. Give me just 1 minute. I got to get to lips. I'm on chins right now. Okay. This will work. All right, so a couple more traits I want to share with you. These are, no, I didn't get your question, Jax. I didn't see it. So the next two traits I'm going to share with you are kind of yin and yang of each other. But this is something that, once again, because a lot of you have safety concerns, you want to be able to use this to keep yourself safe or to keep your loved ones safe. I'm going to show you a couple of facial features that are things to be aware of. I'm going to talk about them as tendencies, not that's set in stone, but it will talk about. So let's see here. Let me read the questions really quick. When reading someone, would you ask if they have a chronic illness? I would say, I'm curious. You got anything going on with your intestines, or do you have anything going on with your heart? Heart is seen up on the nose, by the way, the tip of the nose especially. Depending on the context in which I'm reading their face, Casey, I would absolutely ask. Otherwise, I keep it to myself. One of the most important things that you can learn when you've got these skills is when to STFU. You know what I'm saying when I mean STFU? Just because you see it doesn't mean you should say it. And it's very easy, if you're pissed off, to weaponize this material and just destroy people's self-esteem. Okay? So again, when you start seeing how people truly are, and you'll start seeing their pain and suffering. You really will. And that'll take you one of two ways. You'll either go into compassion fatigue, where you just don't give a crap, or you'll start realizing that everybody in front of you is not responding to you. They're responding to their own shit that you just happen to be standing in front of. Okay? And so hopefully that helps you to, if you're in the healing and the mentoring professions, then hopefully that you use these skills to bring people up instead of pushing their buttons and making them your little flesh robots and stuff like that. I guess there's a certain allure to some people for that. So Jax is saying 2-line vertical, one the other side of the eyes, really heavy features, power. What? I don't understand the question, Jax. Ashley's asking, what does a really narrow nose on top and wider down mean? Shaped like a triangle. So generally speaking, the nose, from a fractal perspective, is connected or correspondent to the spine. So a lot of times if a person has a very narrow bridge of nose here, and that's what I'm assuming you're talking about, right? They might have a fragile spine, right? That being said, when we look at how energy flows, the map is the face is also a map of energetic flow. And one of the metaphors that we use in the modern world for energy flow is money. So a lot of people will call this, and if you go train with Joey Yap, he'll call this your money funnel, right? And he'll often counsel people who are having money issues to shave their eyebrows a little bit to create more space here so more money can come in or more energy can come in. The width here is how much energy comes in. The width down here is how much energy goes out. So if the base of the nose is very, very broad, this person tends to put out more energy than they take in. So they might always be a little tired or a little manic or frantic or a little wired, right? They're in what I call shark mode. So they're always giving out a bit more than they're taking in. If we're talking about the space here in terms of behaviors, then we're looking at somebody who has a little bit more of an open, easygoing, flexible approach to things. They're more willing and eager to play by the rules. The closer these lines are, the eyebrows are together, the less willing to play by the rules the person tends to be. All right. So when I see someone who's got real close set eyes, real close set brows, I know that these people, depending on what other traits are there, are going to think they know better most of the time. Right. Renard is saying, do crooked noses indicate anything? I can't imagine they don't say yes. A lot of times a crooked nose will indicate spine issues. Also, if you look at a nose from the side and you see a little bump in it, little bump here, that usually indicates a secret desire to be in charge. This person will kind of say, I don't want to, you guys figure it out. You guys figure it out. And then as soon as nobody can make a decision, they'll just start making decisions. Like they love to be in charge. They don't want you to know they want to be in charge, right? So that's usually by a little hidden bony bump in the nose. Ashley says, oh, whoa, thank you. All right, is that helpful? Is that useful? Okay. All right, so the next two traits we're going to talk about, these are not on the map that we're showing you, but these, again, because a lot of you guys were asking about predators and bad guys and victims and stuff like that, I'm going to show you, I'm going to try at least to share with you two traits that we want to be on the lookout for in ourselves or in other people. Now, where we look for these is in the lips. Now, when you look at the lips, so I can make this a little bit bigger. You notice how these lips don't fully close? How you can see the teeth? You can see that the same idea here. This is how it was explained to me in Lillian's book and in person. The upper lip is a sign of permissive boundaries or flaccid boundaries. So the more flaccid this upper lip is, the more permeable this person's physical, sexual, and emotional boundaries tend to be. So these people, and Hollywood likes to cultivate this look. If you've ever seen pictures of models where I call it the porn star snicker, like I'm not a good porn star, but that pucker kind of emotion that Hollywood likes to cultivate with the Botox and the fillers and everything else. That flaccid lip indicates somebody who has very permeable boundaries. They don't hold their boundaries very well. They don't set them very well. And they're not likely to defend them very well. And so people with this flaccid lip where you can see the teeth, and they can't fully close the mouth, this is somebody who's often targeted or the casting couch, or a hashtag kind of a moment, or some kind of molestation. Okay. So that, just be aware of that. Again, they can have plump, full lips, but is the muscle tone of the lip flaccid? Can they act? Do they have to, when their lips are at rest? Is there a space where you can see the teeth? That's what we're talking about. Okay. Now the flip side of that, see if I can find it. You can see I use this quite often. Okay, these are the lips I was talking about. See how she can't quite close the lips here? These are good. Lips are flaccid, lacking in muscle tone, stay open when the mouth should be closed. Indicates someone with poor boundaries, especially around sexuality. This trait is often associated with women who are easy prey for predatory humans, both emotionally and sexually. Often a sign of previous sexual abuse, indicates a vulnerability. This trait indicates a subject who may have limited awareness of boundaries between self and other. Interestingly, many models and actresses try to emulate this look in photos, thinking it makes them look sexy, when it could be signaling that they are vulnerable, needy, and therefore easy prey. So this could be a potential flag for sexual and emotional predators searching for victims. Okay. Now, this is the protruding lower lips, or protruding upper lip. Let me get to the protruding lower lips. And I don't know if I have a good picture in this manual. No, I don't think I don't see one. So I'm going to jump out of this really quick. Oops. Now, the inverse of that is a flaccid lower lip. So if you want to see what that looks like, go see some of the pictures of Weinstein. You'll see this kind of, if you want the manual, it's included in the package. It's when you buy the webinar package, you'll get the manual. You'll get all my manuals. In Harvey Weinstein, or even the other guy that everybody is talking about, you'll see this flaccid lower lip. Now, people who exhibit the flaccid lower lip are people who are more likely to violate sexual boundaries. So a person with a flaccid upper lip will be the victim of boundary violations. The person with the lower lip is more likely to consciously or unconsciously, intentionally or unintentionally, violate the boundaries of somebody, whether they have this lip or not. That flaccid lower lip, that lack of muscle tone, is what that indicates. Okay. Is that helpful? I don't want to pull up a picture of I don't want to go and look for that picture right now. It kind of grosses me out. So, questions? Not a damn one, huh? All right. Is that helpful for you guys? Okay, cool. All right, so let's talk about lies now. Okay, so when we talk about lies and deception, we have to understand that there is no single trait that indicates deception. So Daria is asking, or Lottie's asking, what are the weaknesses in these predictors, guys? I don't think it's specific to gender, Lottie. I think that if they have this flaccid lower lip, This could very easily be on a female teacher who has sex with one of her students. So when you see that flaccid lower lip, what you're looking at is somebody who's not as conscious of or aware of the boundaries of the people they're interacting with. When you get someone who has this upper lip in the room with someone with this upper lip, anything could happen, right? And that's the point I'm trying to get across. Now, does that mean if they have this loose, flaccid lip that they're going to do that? No, it doesn't mean they're going to do that. It indicates a certain type of trait or quality that could lead to certain types of behaviors. But it's not a sentence. It's not a prediction. It's a tendency or a possibility, right? Well, here's, again, going back to, so let me read Jax's question really quick. What does it mean when a person has two vertical lines on either side of the eyes? This person has a very tiny nose, cheeks almost surpass the nose, really heavy features, and a very power-hungry person. I'm betting their head is very block-shaped, so they probably have a more, they probably have a very, very domineering dictator type of a jaw to them as well. So let's see here. Yeah, so I would say you're probably right on with that, but I think what the behavior you're describing goes more to head shape than the other features inside of it. So I'm just trying to catch up on all the questions. So Lottie was asking, what's the weakness in these guys? I think I answered that question. Though Daria is asking, can you sense that a person practices dark occult? Maybe. A lot of that has to do with something other than just facial cues. But when you look at somebody and their eyes have a suction to them, a vacuum, if you will, there's different types of spiritual, energetic conditions that a person can have. And you see them largely through the eyes. Okay. You'll have what we call double Shen. You'll have negative Shen. You'll have cold Shen. And these are all qualities of the spirit of that, of the vital spirit in that body, and how it changes based on what's feeding or what it's sharing it with or what it's interacting with. So you probably won't be able to tell if somebody's practicing occult stuff just through facial characteristics. You may be able to determine a predisposition based on several things. A, their temples. If the temples are deep but bright, they tend to be more spiritually oriented or more focused on altered states of consciousness. If the temples have a darkness around them, that fascination or that proclivity to altered states will be more towards substances. And people who do substances tend to also be more on the negative. If they're into occult or spiritual work, those are the people that usually wind up with passengers. So if there's a darkness here, does it indicate that they're practicing dark occult? No, it does mean they're interested in altered states, and it's probably substance related. So those things kind of put you on that path. But it doesn't mean they're necessarily practicing dark occult methods or anything like that. It just means they have substance abuse issues. The Shen will tell you more about what kind of person they might be. If it's very cold, but it's very bright, they tend to be a little bit more on the sociopathic side. If it's very dark, but very seductive, that's what we call negative Shen or anti-Shen. And so this is a person who is a Shen eater. They will pull your energy in and pull your attention with them. So that's a different kind of vampirism that's going on. So these are all, and if it's a double Shen, it means that they have a passenger. Usually you'll see that when one eye bulges out a little bit more than the other, and it kind of looks off, almost like a lazy eye. But it usually means that there's some kind of mental or emotional disturbance that operates a lot like a split personality or possession. Right. So these are things you can see. Again, these are advanced topics, but Can you see them? Yes, if you're trained, right? But most people won't, that's above your pay grade. You won't see that stuff unless you come to like our spirit trainings and stuff like that. So Didi is saying thin, small lips, both small upper lip, meaning of anything. So when you have thin lips, and this goes back to lie detection. When you look at a person's lips, first of all, let me preface, none of the traits that I'm going to talk about mean a person is lying. They just indicate a higher probability. So all deception cues are stress cues. So the more stressed out a person is, the more you'll see their faces start to change. When somebody has very big eyes, but they hold them closed, this person has more secretiveness going on. There's more filtering going on. They will have a tendency to lie or deceive or not volunteer information more so than somebody who has very big eyes or who has small eyes that they hold very wide open. When someone has features that are very open, that indicates an openness and a flexibility in their personality. When the features are small, close together, that indicates more secretiveness, more filtering, more compression or withholding of information in and information out. So when I'm looking at somebody's lips and I see them go, that's called lip compression. Lip compression is almost always a sign of holding your words back, of trying to keep, there's something you want to say, but you can't say it. Or, there's a part of you that needs to be said, but you don't want to say it. Lip compression is a great indicator of the potential of somebody not wanting to be all that they're talking about or sharing with you what they're talking about. Another thing I look at a lot when I want to look at potential deception indicators is pupil dilation and constriction. When a person likes you or a person is being open with you, their pupils tend to be much more open. When they start to process or think or make things up, their pupils tend to constrict. Okay, and that doesn't mean they're lying. It means they're thinking. It means they're processing. It means they're editing everything that's going on in their head so that they have a bespoke message that comes out their mouth, right? Someone who's very open, very wide, what they think, they say. There's almost no filter. The bigger and wider those features are, the less filter they have, right? These people also tend to wear their hearts on their sleeves because they're just open, right? So we like those people, especially if you're a hypnotist, right? But someone who has small features that are very close together, these are the people that are going to be secretive on you. These are the people that are going to answer a question with a question. These are the people that will tell you a lie if you're getting too close to something that makes them vulnerable. Okay? Looking at micro-expressions, right? The other two things I like to look at is how fast are they blinking and how often do they blink. They're not the same measurement. When someone is being more truthful, being more honest, being more comfortable with you, their blink rate is slow. When someone is less comfortable, they blink faster. Consequently, they tend to also blink more often. So one of the things you want to do when you start to calibrate the potential for deception is you want to look at, does their blink rate change? Does the speed at which they blink change? Do their pupils constrict or dilate? How often do they fluctuate? Do they hold their eyes more open or less open? So again, everything I'm teaching you is what we call a deviation from a baseline. In order for you to calculate a deviation from a baseline, you have to know what their normal is. Okay, so you have to be able to, when you meet somebody and you want to do lie detection, you have to take a snapshot of what their normal is and then calibrate when they deviate. Now, another thing that my face readers learn, and this is again in the Shen training, which is a higher level module. If you want to tell when somebody's lying, you can watch their spirit. And what that means is there's a light that comes out from underneath the skin and from out behind the eyes. When a person lies, that light dims unless they're enjoying the lie. In that case, it'll get brighter. When they're telling the truth, and the spirit will be more embodied. So one of the things we learn to look for in advanced face reading to detect if someone's being truthful with us or not is how much of their spirit or the light or the vitality comes out from behind the eyes. If we see the eyes dimming or they go into that 1,000-mile stare, we know they're probably going to lie, or they're getting into places where they don't want to think about or talk about. So you'll see that a lot. Okay. Questions about that? All right. So we're getting into the last few moments. Dee Dee says, appreciate your points on the spirit. Great. We do a lot with that aspect of the human being, but the gateway into that is identity by design, killer influence, and face reading. There's a whole universe out there waiting for you guys to explore with practical applications, if that's what you want to do, right? So if you've enjoyed what you've gotten, remember, I've given you a sample platter of a massive curriculum, and you're going to get a really healthy portion of that in your face reading for Fun and Profit package, which we'll talk about in just a moment. So once again, this will be the last call. So it's the face reading for Fun and Profit Home Study Program. It comes with the face reading program. It comes with our special Defense Against the Dark Arts home study course. This is all about predatory profiling and counter manipulation techniques and how to keep yourself safe and ethically influence people to do what you want. It was named the #1 NLP training program in the year 2 years in a row. And really, really proud of it. Identity by Design Hypnotherapy Home Study Course, valued at $1,497. You're going to get the People Reading for Fun and Profit body language training. You're going to get the 3-month NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Trial Program. It's a $1,997 value. You're going to get face reading for Fun and Profit Level 2 and an invitation to face reading Love, Lies, and Leadership Level 3 certification on November 7th through the 9th, live via Zoom. The total price on the total package on this is $13,732. You can get it all for one low installment of just $797 or 3 easy installments of just $297 each. All you got to do to get yours is click on this link right here, www.nlppower.com/FACE. For those of you in the chat, it's https://www.nlppower.com/FACE. So go ahead and click those links right now and we'll get you started ASAP. In the meantime, what other questions might you have? Let me go to chat. Let's see here. So David's saying, person looking away and quiet, could it simply be thinking, contemplation, and not prepping lie? I didn't say anything about looking away. What I talked specifically about is pupil dilation, blink rate and blink speed, and lip compression. Those are the big ones for me. There's a lot of other qualities, but they're not facial cues that I would zero in on. There is such a thing as duping delight, which is a micro-expression of a smile when somebody is telling a lie, sees they're getting away with it, and feels really good about it. It's a moment of pride for them. It happens in a fraction of a second. Most people don't have that level of skill to pick up that without training. So, and we'll give you some of that training in Defense Against the Dark Arts, but Lottie, some people I care about strongly believe in no judgment from me. Others do believe in judgment from me, which is right. Lottie, you're going to have to elaborate on that because it's impossible to not judge somebody. All right. And anybody who is telling you different is deceiving themselves. The question becomes, when we do the judging, what do we do next? Or what do we do with that judgment? Most people who say they don't judge, they judge, and then they simply don't do anything about it, one way or the other. You treat people the way they want to be treated. And by and large, people's models of the world are pretty much projected out by the way they treat other people. Right? One of the things you'll notice as you get deeper and deeper and deeper into these technologies is that the patterns are true, the rationales are different. Like you'll have the same person exhibit the same pattern in 12 different contexts, and their rationale for why they did that pattern will be different every time, but the pattern won't change. And so we see that the truth of a person is in the patterns that they express, not the stories they tell to justify it or explain it or make excuses for it. And you're going to find in this particular level of consciousness, that is a better indication of how to navigate than always giving people the benefit of the doubt. Okay. Edie says, I had skin cancer removed and it tightened alongside my nose and interfered with my side of the nose lines. How does that affect anything? Okay, so Edie, you had skin cancer and it was removed and it tightened along the side of your nose and interfered with that side of the nose lines. Okay, so let me ask you a question. How have your lungs been since that cancer was removed? And how has your back been? All right, if you want to try and do programs, you need to reach out to Moss or Mia, and they can go over that with you. How is your back? So when we look at the nose, okay, remember I said that the spine is here. So it's interesting is that the head is here, the neck is here, the spine, the genitals are actually down here, the legs are actually down here, but the heart is here. So where was the cancer removed from? Was it removed from the left side here? And if so, the question I have to ask you is, how have your lungs been since you've healed from that surgery? And how has your back been? Okay. Did you notice that happening since the surgery, or was it like that before? Okay. So it's on. So it was like that before. Breathing issues when back is out, but okay when adjusted. Okay, well, it sounds to me like the tightening of the skin is about all you're going to get. Has anybody noticed a change in your personality or how you act in private moments? Right. Lisa says, I have some other classes where I could learn more about the idea that people use the same patterns. Oh, I have some other classes. Where could I learn more about the idea that people use the same patterns but use different reasons? I'm not sure if I already have that class. Okay, Lisa, the best place to look for those is going to be Killer Influence, Defense Against the Dark Arts, and Identity by Design, and Real World Trauma Resolution. Those are, and face reading, of course. Those are the courses that are going to really teach you a bit more about patterning. Our NLP certification will do it too, but I recommend that NLP be the last program you take, not the first one. And there's a reason for that. If you do our other courses first, you can rock any NLP training on the planet like a duck takes to water. It doesn't usually generalize the other way. So for you, Identity by Design, face reading, real world trauma resolution, and Defense Against the Dark Arts are going to be the biggest bang for your buck for really getting into the understanding of pattern, especially the hypnotherapy courses, because those are the ones where we really kind of deconstruct how the different brains, one creates a primal drive, one generates a set of emotions, the other generates a story that justifies acting on those emotions and to satisfy those primal drives. So understanding how all of those things combine together, that's really the purview of our hypnotherapy and hypnosis trainings, right? And then you can start to leverage that through Killer Influence, through face reading, through NLP. All right. Well, that's about all I have time for. Unless you guys have more questions, I'm happy to stay on and answer questions. But if you haven't gone ahead and grabbed your program, by all means, please click that link now, https://www.nlppower.com/FACE. That is me personally typing that link in there, and I'm inviting you to go ahead and click that link. And let's go on this journey together, right? I got to tell you, the face reading has been such a fun ride for me, and it's added so much growth and dimension and joy to the places I've gone and the people I've worked with. And I know for a fact that it can do that for you. So click those links. In the words of the immortal Carol Burnett, I'm so glad we had this time together just to have a laugh or sing a song. Seems we just got started, and before you know it, comes the time we have to say so long. Good night, my friends. Click those links, and we will see you on the other side. And as one of my mentors used to say, may you never be the same again. Good night. God bless. Take care.